The story begins on the Arcadia continent, a land destined to become the Great Giresun Empire. Next to it lay the Truvania continent, where various races once coexisted in harmony. But from the forests, the orc tribes mysteriously united, their power swelling to consume the land. Humanity, suffering under their rule, launched a massive war to finally break free. A hero named Crossan led the charge, developing a new mana method to train an army of victorious knights. However, the end of the war marked the beginning of a new problem. The old guard of nobles and priests grew jealous of the hero's immense power and influence. In a foolish move, they exiled Crossan to the remote Arcadia, completely unaware of the fate they sealed. Not long after, a second war broke out as dragons descended upon the weakened kingdom. With their greatest hero and his followers gone, humanity once again faced the terrifying prospect of extinction. Cornered and desperate, the humans of Truvania turned to a forbidden solution. They poured their most powerful magic into a ritual, summoning a new champion from another world. The process was brutal, forging a hero far more ruthless than the last. This new hero demon single-handedly defeated the Red Dragon and ended the war. With an intimidating presence, he stood as the undisputed savior of humanity. But history, it seems, has a nasty habit of repeating itself. The scene shifts to a dark, rainy forest on the Truvania continent. Amidst the downpour, the body of a fallen knight lies abandoned in the mud. A lone crow scavenges the grim scene, a chilling omen of the knight's fate. The bird looks towards a twisted, ancient tree, as if guarding a dark secret. The scene flashes back to a brutal fight, where knights are being cut down by monstrous beasts in the storm. One knight struggles desperately, his face contorted in a grimace as he parries a heavy blow. Suddenly, a mysterious figure unleashes an overwhelming blast of green energy, turning the tide of the battle. In the present, the Fenslot Royal Guard rushes through the forest, their leader urging them to find the princess. One of the guards urgently calls his leader Kuzlan over to a grim discovery. Kuzlan's face hardens, a single drop of sweat betraying his shock as he takes in the scene. They've stumbled upon a massacre, with a destroyed carriage and bodies strewn across the muddy clearing. The leader stares in stunned silence, unable to comprehend the sheer devastation before him. His subordinate analyzes the area, reporting the princess is gone, but the air is thick with traces of dark magic and drugs. Another knight surveys the wreckage, questioning if this was the work of a noble's escort group caught in a terrible conflict. A mysterious, cloaked figure with a skeletal mask floats down, getting Kuzlan's immediate attention. He declares the magic used here is far too powerful for Truvania, tracing its origins back to Arcadia. Kuzlan breaks into a cold sweat, the shocking revelation hitting him like a physical blow. His subordinate adds another chilling detail: there are no signs of a struggle among the fallen. A flashback shows a powerful, swirling energy blast ripping through the forest. It wasn't a battle. It was a brutal, one-sided hunt by a monstrous figure. The masked man questions the report, demanding to know the full story behind this so-called hunt. The knight connects the massacre to the princess's kidnapping, an act of high treason. The traitor is revealed to be Duke Nelius's illegitimate son, seen taking the princess hostage. Kuzlan roars in frustration, revealing the duke's son also conspired with the enemy nation, Maris. The masked man considers the sheer power of the combined forces, including knights from the enemy nation Maris. He grimly concludes that for a certain kind of being, hunting them all is not impossible. The scene flashes back to a clear night, illuminated by a brilliant full moon. A monstrous creature with glowing red eyes lets out a furious roar, its territory having been violated. The princess's eye widens in terror, her face marked by the brutal confrontation. She collapses to the ground, a vulnerable survivor amidst the chaos. Her captor is revealed to be one of Truvania's most feared beasts, a creature of immense power. The monster bellows, its raw fury manifesting as a dark, swirling aura. Cowering in a cave, the princess stares up at the hulking form of an ogre. This ancient beast, with its spiked shoulders and menacing glare, is the one responsible for the massacre. Kuzlan grits his teeth, recalling the ogre's brutal reputation for leaving no survivors. The masked man reminds him that their summoning magic was cut off, leaving them with no way to call for aid. Surrounded by his knights, Kuzlan feels a wave of despair wash over him, believing all hope is lost. He clutches his face in frustration, overwhelmed by their impossible situation. But a sudden thought strikes him, a contradiction in the story that doesn't add up. If the ogre is such a merciless killer, then something about this incident feels wrong. He questions why the massacre site showed no signs of the beast's usual immediate brutality. The scene reveals the truth. The princess is still alive, held captive by the hulking monster in its lair. Injured and terrified, Princess Leonia looks up at her captor, a strange light emanating from her chest. Her name echoes in the darkness, a desperate cry for the captured royal. A startled crow takes flight against the fiery sunset, signaling a shift in the scene. The perspective changes following two heavily laden travelers trekking through a dense forest. They are part of the Faren Trading Company's Caravan, navigating a treacherous route as dusk begins to fall. The caravan leader laments their misfortune, realizing they've gotten lost on a path far too dangerous to travel at night. A hooded figure with a stern, bearded face watches the group, his expression unreadable. The leader, Faren, turns to the hooded man, questioning his experience with this particular route. The hooded man silently regrets his decision, realizing the path is far more perilous than he was led to believe. Faren quickly dismisses the concern with a nervous laugh, trying to cover up his inexperience. He tries to save face by blaming the changed landscape, a flimsy excuse that doesn't fool his worried companions. The hooded man's sharp, discerning eye reveals he sees right through the merchant's clumsy lies. One of the hooded man's companions speculates that the merchants weren't lying, suggesting the terrain was deliberately changed. The hooded man sharply silences his companion, his senses suddenly on high alert. He springs into action, drawing his sword as the caravan is ambushed by monstrous figures. The attackers are revealed to be ferocious gnolls, and the battle begins with a brutal clash. He quickly realizes these aren't just wild beasts. They're wearing orc-made armor, confirming this is an organized trap. The merchant leader desperately orders his men to hold their formation, knowing that to separate means certain doom. The hooded man and his three skilled companions form a tight defensive circle, ready for the onslaught. As darkness falls, they find themselves surrounded by countless pairs of glowing eyes, a truly overwhelming force. With a steely gaze, the hooded man senses the enemy is about to charge, bracing for the inevitable. The horde of armored beasts lunges forward in a ferocious charge, forcing the small group into a desperate defense. The small group fights with brutal efficiency, their coordinated strikes tearing through the charging beasts. A younger companion grimaces, his shield barely holding against a crushing blow from an armored gnoll. Fueled by rage, another companion brutally dispatches a fallen gnoll, his intent clear. A precise, powerful blow shatters an enemy's helmet, which clatters uselessly to the forest floor. The red-haired warrior unleashes his fury, becoming a whirlwind of destruction in the heart of the battle. The merchants can only watch in stunned horror, unnerved not by the monsters but by the ferocity of their own protectors. The red-haired warrior turns his blood-soaked, menacing glare on the merchant, silencing him with a single look. The terrified merchants immediately get the message, shrinking back from the warrior's intimidating presence. As the last of the attackers fall, the red-haired warrior reminds his comrades to stay focused, their job not yet finished. The hooded leader calmly surveys the aftermath, warning his group that the initial assault was likely just the beginning. A chilling cackle echoes through the forest, hinting that the worst is yet to come. The terrified merchant points into the darkness, his warning cry drawing everyone's attention to a new horror. A colossal troll emerges from the shadows, its sheer size dwarfing the battle-hardened warriors. The beast lets out a deafening roar, its glowing red eyes promising nothing but destruction. The warriors realize with dawning horror that the gnoll attack was merely a prelude to a much greater threat. The hooded leader tightens his grip on his sword, his resolve hardening in the face of this new enemy. With terrifying ease, the troll rips a massive boulder from the earth, preparing to crush them all. The monster hurls its makeshift projectile, forcing the disciplined group to break formation and scatter. The boulder crashes down with devastating force, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Panic grips the merchants as they realize their tight formation has now become a death trap. The merchant leader cries out in despair, convinced their small group is about to be wiped out. But the hooded man remains focused, his grim expression showing he's not ready to surrender. The troll scoops up another massive handful of earth, its action suggesting a coordinated hunt with the gnolls. It scans the battlefield, deliberately looking for another projectile to hurl at the scattered group. The leader realizes this is no ordinary beast, suspecting it's a trained war machine from a hidden production line. Under the pale moonlight, the true menace of these monstrous creatures becomes chillingly clear. The warriors face the colossal threat, their chances of survival looking slimmer by the second. Taking charge, the hooded leader barks out orders, assigning his men to protect the merchants and distract the beast. His red-haired companion explodes with anger, questioning the suicidal plan but demanding to know the next step. The leader calmly reveals there is a plan, one his furious companion is already very familiar with. The leader reveals their insane plan, wait for a distraction, then charge straight between the monster's legs. The troll stands oblivious, its glowing red eyes fixed on them with primal hunger. Cursing the familiar high-risk tactic, the red-haired warrior follows his leader into the fray. The hooded man grits his teeth, his expression locked in fierce concentration as he sprints towards the beast. But the troll's attention suddenly shifts, its gaze moving away from the charging warriors. Its eyes flash from red to a brilliant blue, reflecting something in the sky that has captured its focus. A mysterious figure soars through the air, perfectly silhouetted against the massive full moon. A single glowing blue eye pierces the darkness, belonging to a newcomer who has just arrived on the scene. The figure lands with the force of a meteor, cracking the very earth beneath their feet. A powerful impact sends the colossal troll reeling backward, caught completely off guard by the surprise attack. The hooded leader, Baxter, stares in disbelief, completely baffled by the sudden turn of events. The massive troll crashes to the ground, its colossal body shaking the earth one last time. The red-haired warrior rushes to his leader, mistakenly believing Baxter was responsible for felling the beast. But from the dust and mist a new figure emerges, standing over the defeated monster. The warrior's bravado vanishes, replaced by sheer terror as he recognizes the newcomer's terrifying form. Crackling with raw power, the mysterious man stands amidst the carnage, an aura of blue energy radiating from him. He takes a slow, deliberate step forward, his glowing eyes scanning the battlefield with cold indifference. Baxter and his men can only watch, frozen in place by the overwhelming presence of this new arrival. The stranger stands over them like a god of war, his attention now fixed on the stunned group of survivors. The ground is littered with the fallen, a grim testament to the newcomer's devastating entrance. The newcomer calmly inspects a piece of the gnoll's armor, his glowing eyes radiating an unsettling power. He brings the metal shard closer, his senses analyzing it with an almost animalistic intensity. The red-haired warrior turns to his leader, his face a mask of confusion and fear, demanding to know what they're looking at. Baxter grimly explains this is a creature of legend, a being most people would never see in their lifetime. Having learned what he needed, the mysterious figure straightens up, his presence dominating the clearing. The narrative reveals this being is known as the most feared monster in the entire forest. A dark omen appears as a crow with glowing eyes watches from a branch, symbolizing the legend that no one survives such an encounter. The figure takes a heavy, deliberate step towards the stunned group of warriors. As the men stare up in awe and terror, Baxter finally gives the creature a name, an ogre. A close-up on the ogre's eye reveals a chilling, focused intelligence, far from that of a simple monster. Baxter's hand trembles on his sword hilt, his worst fears confirmed by the sight before him. The ogre clenches a bloodied fist, a creature of legend whose numbers are terrifyingly few. He recalls the tales of their unmatched strength and cunning, realizing he's facing a true apex predator. Meanwhile, the merchants panic, confused by the shadowy figure and their protector's sudden stillness. Baxter grits his teeth, his mind racing for an escape plan, but every option feels like a death sentence. He knows with chilling certainty that any attempt to flee would be utterly futile. The ogre simply watches them, its glowing blue eyes holding an unexpected and unsettling intelligence. It lets out a weary sigh, its expression looking more exhausted than threatening. In a move that defies all logic, the creature extends a hand, offering to guide them the rest of the way. Baxter can only stare in stunned silence, his mind struggling to comprehend the monster's unbelievable offer. The ogre speaks, his calm demeanor and glowing blue eyes completely contradicting his monstrous appearance. He stands before the warriors, his gesture of peace holding them all in a state of suspended disbelief. While the merchants continue to panic, the ogre reveals a shocking truth. He shares the same blood as them. He introduces himself as Leyon, a half-blood born of both human and ogre lineage. The scene shifts, establishing their location in the remote region of southeast Truvania. A weathered map reveals their destination, a small settlement nestled deep within the treacherous wilderness. Their goal is the kingdom of Arnia, a fortified outpost on the edge of a dangerous territory known as Help Plain. This kingdom is isolated, hidden away in a remote and unforgiving forest. They finally arrive at their destination, a settlement called Faren Village, protected by a high wooden wall. A lone guard on the watchtower is suddenly alerted, his gaze fixed on something approaching from the darkness below. The half-ogre, Leyon, leads the weary survivors, his massive form cutting a path through the darkness. From his perch, the village guard spots the colossal figure emerging from the forest below. His face pales as he challenges the intruder, his voice tight with alarm. Behind their unlikely guide, the warriors and merchants follow, finally seeing the settlement's lights. The merchant leader whines about his aching bones while the red-haired warrior curses their fallen enemies. Baxter remains silent and watchful, his gaze fixed on the village and their strange new ally. They arrive at a formidable wooden wall, a barrier clearly built to withstand monstrous assaults. The guard suddenly recognizes the ogre, calling out his name and demanding to know who accompanies him. Leyon calmly explains he's brought a trading company that has an arrangement with the village chief. His explanation, however, does little to ease the tension as all eyes fall on the hooded, battle-hardened warriors. The guard voices his suspicion, noting the caravan's late arrival and the possibility of a bandit ambush. The merchant leader erupts in a furious tirade, blaming the village chief's faulty directions for their delay. His childish outburst only serves to confirm the guard's belief that they are inexperienced first-timers. The guard remains unmoved, declaring that without proof, they will be turned away to protect the village. In a fit of desperation, the merchant demands they summon the village chief to vouch for them. Leyon scratches his head, contemplating the standoff with a thoughtful, almost weary expression. He then addresses the guard, suggesting that these very people might be crucial for the village's security. The guard's interest is piqued, questioning Leyon's mention of urgent voices coming from the forest. Leyon flashes a confident smile, personally guaranteeing he will deal with any problems the newcomers might cause. Baxter and his weary companions can only watch the tense negotiation, their fate hanging in the balance. The group is finally led into Faren village, a remote settlement protected by a massive wall under a starry sky. An overhead view reveals a rustic, isolated community, a small pocket of civilization in the vast wilderness. Their destination is a brightly lit stone building, the heart of the village where the leaders await. Inside, a wooden mug is set down on a table, signaling a moment of respite after their harrowing journey. The village hall is bustling with life as the red-haired warrior broods at a table, while Leyon speaks with the elders. The village chief erupts in laughter, clearly amused by Leyon's bold guarantee for the stranger's behavior. Another villager chides the chief for teasing, pointing out that the newcomers were already terrified upon their arrival. He praises Leyon for a job well done, acknowledging that the half-ogre saved the caravan from certain doom. Baxter, the hooded leader, breaks his silence, his sharp gaze indicating he has a question of his own. He asks about the defensive barriers he saw, correctly guessing they encircle the entire village for protection. Baxter observes that while monster attacks are common, the village's defenses seem built for something far more serious. He voices his concern, hoping he's mistaken as the tension in the room thickens around them. He cuts to the chase, asking the village chief if they are preparing for war, a question that hangs heavy in the air. The red-haired warrior listens intently from his seat, the entire group now focused on the chief's unspoken answer. Leyon seems puzzled by the sudden talk of war, while a villager beside him notes Baxter's unfortunate timing. Baxter's intense gaze reveals he's not just asking a question, he's confirming a deeply held suspicion. The chief's eyes narrow, his expression shifting from weary to deadly serious, confirming the gravity of the situation. He acknowledges the grim reality of conflict and correctly identifies Baxter's group as men familiar with war. A flashback reveals a chaotic battle, a commander leading his troops into a desperate, bloody charge against a sea of spears. The chief recalls his own history with war, a time when humanity fought a noble revolution to escape the brutal rule of the orcs. The chief recalls the brutal war against a relentless orc horde, their glowing red eyes a symbol of their unified might. He laments that modern conflicts have devolved into meaningless bloodshed over selfish interests. Leyon listens intently, the grim philosophy of war clearly weighing on his mind. The chief expresses his sincere hope that their village will never have to endure such a tragedy. He frames their formidable defenses as a physical representation of the villagers' collective wish for survival. Suddenly, the red-haired warrior slams his mug down, shattering the tense peace. The entire room freezes, startled by his explosive display of frustration. He angrily dismisses the chief's words, accusing him of romanticizing what is clearly a preparation for battle. Leyon reflects on the warrior's harsh words, looking down at his own leader as he considers the village's true motives. The thought sends him into a spiral. wondering if his own ability to speak like a human can ever truly explain his monstrous nature. Baxter internally grapples with Leyon's immense power, having never witnessed a troll defeated so effortlessly. The tense atmosphere in the hall thickens as the warriors try to reconcile the village's plight with their monstrous protector. The red-haired warrior, Kincaid, voices his deep-seated distrust, demanding proof that Leyon isn't just a weapon. A villager finds Kincaid's judgment of their protector to be overly harsh, while another of Baxter's men remains silent. The village chief finally steps in, chiding the warrior, now identified as Tilock, for his aggressive words. Leyon's expression turns somber, the weight of Tilock's accusation clearly taking its toll. He lowers his head, a silent admission that he understands the fear and suspicion his appearance causes. Baxter speaks up, acknowledging Leyon's feelings but admitting he doesn't fully grasp the half-ogre's perspective. However, his sharp gaze reveals he understands the core issue, the difficulty of accepting someone with such monstrous power. Leyon turns away, explaining that if he can't prove his trustworthiness, their fear will inevitably brand the entire village as a threat. Leyon offers a surprising solution to their distrust, extending a hand and inviting them to meet his mother. The scene shifts to a clear, moonlit night, setting the stage for their journey to his home. They approach a rustic wooden structure, its presence hidden in the tall, moon-drenched grass. A cozy log cabin comes into view, nestled on a hill with a lone grave marker standing watch nearby. Inside, a candle flickers as a delicate hand wearing a green ring rests gently on a weathered surface. A blonde woman sits quietly in the warm, rustic kitchen, her back to the door as she awaits their arrival. A simple but hearty meal of bread and cheese is laid out on the table, a silent welcome. Outside, Leyon casually explains he used a rather personal method to mask their scent from monsters. The woman inside turns her head, her senses alerted to the sound of their approach. The heavy wooden door creaks open, finally revealing the interior of the half-ogre's home. Leyon fills the doorway of the small cabin, announcing his arrival to his mother. Baxter peeks from behind the massive half-ogre, explaining their late arrival was due to village matters. The hot-headed Tilock peeks around the corner, his face flushing as he lays eyes on the woman inside. His aggressive demeanor melts away, replaced by a look of stunned surprise. Leyon's mother, a strikingly beautiful human woman, calmly invites the stunned warriors to sit down. The story flashes back 15 years, returning to a moonlit night over Faren village. In the past, panicked villagers scramble along the settlement's defensive wall under the cover of darkness. From a crowded watchtower, the guards stare out into the night, questioning a grim report. A younger, more anxious village chief demands to know the situation from his tense-looking men. One of the guards fumbles with his weapon, admitting they are completely unprepared for the unfolding crisis. A guard urges the chief to witness the unfolding horror with his own eyes. The chief's face contorts in shock as he finally sees what's approaching their walls. Below, a colossal ogre stands over a fallen woman, its presence radiating a dark, powerful energy. His eyes widen in sheer disbelief, struggling to process the monstrous sight before him. The beast's glowing red eyes burn with a terrifying primal intelligence. The villagers can only whisper its name in terror, recognizing the legendary ogre looming over its victim. The other guards are frozen in fear, their faces pale with the realization of their impending doom. One of them frantically signals for everyone to lower their weapons, desperate not to provoke the monster. But the chief recognizes a specific detail, recalling a description from an old anti-monster manual. He identifies it not as a simple ogre, but as Truvania's legendary forest wolf, a creature of myth and terror. The chief gives the beast a name whispered in terror, Lobo, the slaughterer of the central continent. He panics, realizing their walls are useless against a creature that can leap over any barrier. But a younger guard interrupts, pointing out that the monster's power isn't the strangest thing about this situation. He explains that after watching for some time, they've noticed the creature's behavior is completely unnatural. The ogre has been standing perfectly still over the woman for hours, a chilling and bizarre sight. The chief is stunned into silence, unable to process this impossible turn of events. The guard presses him, asking if the old manuals ever mentioned a motive for the beast beyond simple hunting. From the watchtower, the men continue their tense vigil, observing the unsettling scene below. The ogre's glowing red eyes seem to hold a strange, focused intelligence, not just mindless rage. Back in the present, the memory triggers a dawning realization on the chief's face, connecting the past to their current predicament. The chief recalls the beast's menacing red eyes burning with an unnatural intelligence. This legendary ogre Lobo stood over its victim, a terrifying silhouette against the night sky. The woman lay motionless on the ground, seemingly another casualty of the monster's rampage. But instead of finishing its prey, the beast simply stood there, watching her in an unnerving silence. Its attention then snapped towards the village wall, having finally noticed the terrified onlookers. The guards could only stare back in confusion, completely baffled by the monster's bizarre inaction. Suddenly, a brilliant blue light erupted from the fallen woman, a shocking burst of raw power. The blast sent the colossal ogre flying through the air, its massive form tossed aside like a rag doll. On the wall, the villagers could only cry out in shock, unable to believe what they were witnessing. The woman then began to float, suspended in the air by an otherworldly blue aura. The chief and his men are completely stunned, their faces frozen in disbelief at the impossible sight. Her hands twitch in the air, a sign of life returning as she's enveloped in the blue energy. After the blast, she lies on the ground, miraculously alive, much to the astonishment of the onlookers. Back in the present, the warriors step into the cabin, their expressions shifting as they finally see their host. Leyon's mother sits with a calm and composed demeanor, her appearance completely human and strikingly elegant. Leyon's monstrous exterior melts away as he excitedly points to the meal, revealing a surprisingly gentle dynamic with his mother. Tilock, the aggressive warrior, is completely disarmed, a blush creeping up his face as he stares at the woman. She apologizes for the modest welcome, gently chiding her son for not giving her any warning about their guests. The group moves outside, where Leyon explains to his mother that their visit was an impromptu decision. She expresses sympathy for their difficult journey, promising to keep a better eye on her son's sudden plans in the future. She cuts straight to the point, her refined voice asking what business brings them to her home. Tilock's earlier aggression is replaced by a tense, watchful silence as he studies their host. The warrior's eyes widen as he recognizes her accent, a detail Baxter immediately picks up on. Her elegant speech is a dead giveaway, a trait exclusive to the royal bloodline. The warriors sit in a heavy silence, facing the woman who is clearly more than just a simple villager. Tilock clenches his jaw, realizing the villagers and this woman are perfectly matched in their secrecy. She closes her eyes for a moment, seeming to understand their unspoken suspicions completely. Without them saying a word, she acknowledges that her and her son's situation is anything but normal. She knows any explanation she gives might fall on deaf ears, given the unbelievable things they've already seen. Her eye flashes a familiar, brilliant blue as she apologizes for Leyon's actions and asks what it will take to earn their trust. The woman calmly faces the two warriors, ready to address their deep-seated suspicions. Baxter, the hooded leader, correctly interprets her offer as the beginning of a negotiation. She confirms his assessment, suggesting they frame their talk in business terms to get to the point faster. Tilock whirls on his leader, angrily questioning if this is really a matter to be negotiated. Baxter tries to calm his subordinate, but Tilock insists they need answers from the evasive noblewoman. He shoves his leader's hand away, arguing that gratitude for being saved doesn't erase their need for the truth. Tilock directs his fury at the woman, demanding to know why royalty is hiding in the middle of nowhere. His voice rises to a roar as he asks the ultimate forbidden question, why she chose to have a monstrous son. She calmly remarks that his words are harsh, but Tilock furiously retorts that she should look at her own situation. He sneers with contempt, calling her shameless for hiding away without the strength to face the world's problems. Tilock's fury triggers a flashback to a fiery battlefield, where demonic knights overwhelm human soldiers. He remembers his comrades being mercilessly cut down, their lives thrown away in the chaos of war. The memory reveals the conflict's true nature, a relentless, greedy war that pushed into demonic territories. The flashback focuses on the trivial reasons for the bloodshed, a war fought over a mere handful of land. The horror of the pointless slaughter still haunts him, leaving him breathless with remembered fear. He can never forget the atrocities committed by those monstrous soldiers with their glowing red eyes. The cruel, bloodthirsty face of an enemy commander is burned into his memory, a symbol of the war's savagery. Back in the present, Tilock's rage boils over, projecting his hatred for those war beasts onto Leyon. He completely loses his composure, screaming his accusations as Baxter desperately tries to intervene. Tilock draws a blade on the woman, demanding to know if she and her son are the dark secret the village has been protecting. Tilock presses further, his voice filled with anguish as he questions what could drive a noblewoman to such a desperate act. Leyon tries to de-escalate, but his mother seems to understand the warrior's pain, even as she struggles with her own past. Tilock's trauma manifests as a shadowy, red-eyed figure, the ghost of the monsters he fought in the war. The phantom of his past taunts him, twisting his righteous anger into a perverse accusation. The memory of a cold reptilian eye flashes in his mind, a symbol of the inhumanity he faced. But Leyon's mother has had enough, slamming the table and shouting her son's name with sudden authority. Tilock is suddenly blasted backward, his face a mixture of shock and humiliation as he's thrown across the room. His eyes widen in disbelief, unable to process the sudden, overwhelming force that struck him. He's launched clean through the cabin wall, a blur of motion against the dark night sky. The camera pans to the splintered remains of the wall, a testament to the woman's hidden power. Tilock lands hard outside, his hand scraped and bloody as he struggles to catch his breath. Inside, Leyon's mother lies on the floor, exhausted but resolute after unleashing her power. Leyon's protective fury ignites, his monstrous side surfacing as a dark aura envelops him. A second figure is violently ejected from the cabin, crashing into the moonlit field. The force of the impact leaves a trail of shattered wood and debris in its wake. Tilock gasps for air on the ground, his body aching from the brutal, unseen blow. He stares back at the cabin, his mind reeling from the sheer power that just overwhelmed him. The warrior lets out a cry of agony, the reality of his humiliating defeat setting in. Baxter moves in swiftly, his glowing blade at Tilock's throat to prevent any further foolishness. Leyon's mother stands in the ruined doorway, her calm but menacing gaze making it clear who is truly in charge. Baxter's eyes blaze with fury as he keeps his hot-headed subordinate pinned to the ground. Leyon's rage suddenly evaporates, replaced by a dawning look of horror as he realizes what he's done. His monstrous features soften into pure shock, his eyes wide with regret over his violent outburst. The half-ogre stands frozen in the ruined doorway, staring down at his mother who has collapsed from the effort. From the floor, she weakly calls out to her son, urging him to regain his composure. Her voice snaps him out of it, and he immediately kneels, his concern for her overriding his anger. Baxter's voice cuts through the tension, his sharp gaze fixed on the half-ogre as he confirms his name. The hooded leader now stands outside, his attention fully on Leyon, analyzing the complex family dynamic. With the immediate threat over, Baxter sheathes his glowing blade as the woman struggles to recover inside. Leyon's glowing eye widens, the warrior's question hitting him with the force of a physical blow. Leyon's monstrous features twist in anguish as he clarifies his rage wasn't just for his mother. Baxter stands ready with his glowing blade, explaining its edge isn't meant for the woman. His piercing blue eyes lock onto Leyon, declaring the true target is the one who doesn't look human. He lunges forward in a blur of motion, his glowing sword aimed directly at the half-ogre. From the floor, Leyon's mother cries out his name, her face a mask of terror. Baxter calmly explains he held back, intending only to subdue Leyon without causing serious harm. The glowing blade connects with Leyon's arm as his mother watches helplessly from the floor. But a dark energy erupts from the point of impact, Leyon's eyes burning with a dangerous red glow. Baxter's confidence shatters, his gritted teeth betraying the sudden realization that this is very, very bad. The warrior's powerful strike didn't even scratch him, the blade failing to penetrate his monstrously tough skin. Baxter realizes with dawning horror that his blade is useless against the half-ogre's tough hide. But Leyon isn't attacking him. His enraged gaze is fixed on something behind the warrior. Baxter desperately tries to warn him, realizing the half-ogre is charging straight towards his own mother. A brutal punch sends the hooded leader flying, his warning cut short by the overwhelming force. The impact shatters the air, a testament to Leyon's unrestrained, monstrous strength. Baxter is launched from the cabin like a cannonball, completely overpowered by the furious half-ogre. He crashes into the field outside, dazed and struggling to comprehend the raw power he just faced. Leyon soars through the night sky, a terrifying silhouette against the full moon, ready to finish the fight. He descends like a meteor, his claws and monstrous form poised for a final, devastating strike. The ground erupts in a massive explosion of force as Leyon's attack lands, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. From the crater, Leyon rises, a shadowy beast with glowing red eyes locked on his target. Baxter's eye reflects the monstrous form, his mind already calculating his next move despite the chaos. The hooded leader stands his ground, his glowing blade ready as he faces the berserk half-ogre. He notes with grim admiration that even in his rage, Leyon had the sense to take the fight outside. The enraged half-ogre lunges forward again, a blur of pure, unrestrained power. Baxter barely manages to parry the brutal assault, the force of the blow sending shockwaves through the air. He nimbly dodges the next strike, his own blue energy flaring as he evades the monstrous onslaught. The warrior repositions with blinding speed, a swift arc of motion in the moonlit clearing. Baxter tries to reason with him, questioning if he's considered the danger his rampage poses to his own mother. But his words are lost on the beast, as Leyon turns with a demonic snarl, ready to attack once more. Leyon's monstrous form becomes a whirlwind of dark energy, his red eyes fixed on his opponent. His glowing red gaze meets the blue light of Baxter's blade in a brutal clash of power. But Baxter is stunned to find the berserk half-ogre perfectly mirroring his own movements. The hooded leader realizes with dawning horror that the beast has copied his signature fighting style. Leyon's hand forms a familiar gesture, proving he learned the complex technique in a single glance. Suddenly, a mysterious red sigil appears in the sky, unleashing a wave of energy that disrupts the fight. From the ground, Tilock watches in confusion as the strange magic erupts in the clearing. The injured warrior grits his teeth in frustration, cursing his leader for the escalating chaos. In a flash, Tilock is hoisted upside down, caught completely off guard by an unseen force. Leyon's mother stands over him, her calm expression revealing she was the one who effortlessly ended his involvement. With a cold and determined gaze, Leyon's mother unleashes a wave of her own power to intervene. A massive blast of blue energy erupts between the two combatants, instantly halting their battle. The dust clears to reveal the fight has been forcibly stopped, with both warriors now standing apart. Leyon stares down at his own bloodied hands, the fog of his rage finally beginning to lift. Baxter watches him intently, his sharp eyes analyzing the half-ogre's sudden change in demeanor. The hooded leader reveals he's figured it out. Leyon had copied his moves and planned a perfect counter in an instant. He realizes with astonishment that Leyon accomplished this incredible feat while completely lost in his berserk rage. Baxter then reveals a glowing green pendant, explaining it was the only thing that saved Leyon from his own devastating attack. He holds up the artifact, marveling at its ability to control such an overwhelmingly powerful creature. A flashback confirms his suspicion, showing the mother using the pendant to tame her son, proving she is a truly remarkable woman. Leyon's monstrous features twist with dawning regret as he slowly returns to his senses. Baxter explains his caution, revealing his connection to a group called Kincaid and their mission to prevent half-bloods from becoming weapons of war. He offers a sincere apology, admitting Leyon's unique case made him overly sensitive and rude. The warrior promises to keep their secret, recognizing Leyon is not a monster but a well-controlled child, and offers to return the pendant. His mother's voice cuts through his confusion, snapping him completely out of his trance. The full weight of his actions crashes down on him, his eyes wide with horror and self-reproach. She reaches out with open arms, offering comfort and forgiveness without a single word. With a gentle smile, she coaxes him closer, urging him to come inside and rest after the ordeal. The massive half-ogre walks towards his mother, his intimidating form seeming almost childlike in her presence. He collapses into her embrace, finding solace and safety in the arms of the one person who truly understands him. Overwhelmed by his actions, the half-ogre weeps, his monstrous features softened by regret as his mother comforts him. The aftermath of their battle leaves the clearing shrouded in a mystical haze, with motes of light lingering in the air. Splintered wood from the destroyed cabin floats in the water, a stark reminder of the power unleashed. Elsewhere in the field, Tilock slowly regains consciousness, the consequences of his outburst settling in. He grits his teeth in frustration, bruised and bloodied, cursing the humiliating turn of events. As a lone bird flies across the moonlit sky, the warrior's anger gives way to weary resignation. The scene shifts to the next morning, with birds soaring over the vast, sun-drenched mountain range. Back at the cabin, the morning light reveals the hastily repaired home, a testament to the night's destructive events. Inside, Leyon's mother is already at work, preparing a meal as steam rises from a simmering pot. She ladles a hearty, comforting stew into a bowl, a simple act of care after a night of chaos. With a steady hand, she arranges a bowl of stew, her expression a mask of calm composure. A simple but hearty meal is laid out, a silent offering of peace after the night's violent conflict. She stands over the generous breakfast spread, the warm morning light filling the rustic cabin. A faint scar marks her cheek, a silent testament to a past far more complex than she lets on. Later, she's seen engrossed in a large tome, revealing a scholarly side hidden beneath her simple exterior. The scene transitions to a sun-drenched forest, where golden rays pierce through the canopy. Leyon looks up into the light, his monstrous features softened by the peaceful morning glow. He stands alone in a clearing with his axe, a silent guardian of the tranquil woods. His gaze falls upon the departing warriors, lamenting that their return journey seems even more arduous. Baxter voices his concern, questioning why their path home is taking such a suspiciously long detour. Leyon admits the path is a detour, explaining it's not just about avoiding danger. He kneels down, his grip tight on his axe, displaying a deep connection to the wilderness. Reaching out, he claims the forest itself is communicating with him, guiding their way. His intense focus reveals he's sensing something far beyond the other's perception. Standing tall in the sun-drenched clearing, he seems to have found the answer he was seeking. He turns back to the group, confidently reassuring them that safety is just beyond this stretch of woods. One of Baxter's men quietly questions if their guide is being a little too paranoid for his own good. Sunlight streams through the canopy, marking their progress along the Faren Trading Company's return route. The Half-Ogre leads the weary travelers as they navigate the treacherous border of Helpplane. The consequences of the previous night become clear as the injured Tilock is carried on a stretcher, earning little sympathy. The merchant tries to lighten the mood, noting their successful sales have made the journey easier. Tilock can only grit his teeth in silent frustration, his pride as wounded as his body. The group trudges onward, their boots sinking into the unforgiving forest floor. Baxter suddenly calls out to Leyon, who halts and raises his axe in response. The half-ogre turns with a sharp, knowing look, a blade of grass held casually in his mouth. He flashes a confident grin, addressing the hooded leader with surprising familiarity. Baxter's expression is grim as he asks for an update on their immediate situation. Leyon admits the path is rough, but reassures them he can sense their destination is close. The merchant leader sighs in relief at the news, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Baxter shows his concern for Leyon's well-being, but the half-ogre brushes it off with a laugh. Leyon admits he's been captivated by the adventure stories and the imagined sense of the city. Baxter finds it odd he's so sheltered, but Leyon explains the villagers and his mother avoid telling him about the outside world. One of Baxter's men speculates they were just protecting a naive kid from being taken advantage of. Leyon grins, recalling the merchant's tales, particularly the part about haggling being the secret to success. He wonders if he'd be good at the city skill, but his companion grumbles that the novelty would wear off fast. Baxter's gaze sharpens as he asks if the village chief is the one keeping Leyon from leaving Faren. Leyon clarifies that while he loves the stories, staying behind has always been his own choice. He glances towards the village walls, suggesting they might exist as much to keep him in as to keep others out. The half-ogre concludes that inside those barriers is the only place he's truly accepted for what he is. Baxter listens with a thoughtful, intense expression, absorbing the weight of Leyon's confession. Leyon adds another reason for staying, his thoughts turning to the lone grave marker outside their home. He explains his duty is to his mother, who lives a solitary life in their remote cabin. The half-ogre reveals a painful truth. The difficult birth left his mother unable to walk.
He admits she hid her condition well, but the villagers told him she was once a noblewoman who gave up everything.
Concluding she sacrificed her entire life for him, Leyon feels he can't abandon her for his own selfish desires. One of Baxter's men speculates about his difficult childhood, joking about his monstrous appetite as an infant. The conversation shifts as the companion recalls their first chaotic encounter with the half-ogre. Baxter cuts in with a sharp question, asking if Leyon was specifically ordered to watch over their caravan's route. The sudden accusation catches the other companion completely by surprise. Leyon simply offers a knowing smile, his silence speaking volumes as he considers the warrior's question. Leyon stammers, clearly caught off guard by Baxter's direct accusation. Baxter acknowledges his gratitude for being saved, but makes it clear he still expects the truth. The half-ogre panics, realizing that being on a secret mission would make him a potential enemy. Cornered, Leyon quickly tries to downplay the situation, insisting it's not as serious as war. He finally confesses the real problem. Orc bandits had been plaguing the forest around the village. A flashback shows these orc groups were a significant threat to any small caravan or mercenary band. The attacks weren't just a safety issue, they were crippling the village's vital trade and livelihood. Baxter puts it all together, realizing Leyon's patrols were a secret effort to use his scent as a deterrent. But Leyon reveals a new mystery, explaining that the orc bandits suddenly vanished without a trace. He speculates that the village's own defensive efforts might have been the cause, though he seems unsure. Leyon admits his very presence as a forest ogre is the ultimate deterrent. Baxter's sharp gaze questions if their protection was merely a matter of the village's reputation. The half-ogre denies this, his serious expression catching his companion's attention. He reveals a more sinister truth. The orcs have started taming other monsters like gnolls and trolls. Leyon adds that they've even been altering the forest's terrain, confirming the group's earliest suspicions. His eyes widen with concern as he explains the forest itself is sending him urgent warnings. Despite the danger, he tries to reassure them, claiming this isn't the first time they've faced such a threat. He confidently promises to handle any problems that arise, though his companions still look uneasy. Suddenly, a walled city appears on the horizon, signaling their journey's end is near. Leyon points towards their destination, Leiden, congratulating the weary travelers on surviving the treacherous path. Baxter calls out to Leyon, who turns with a slightly startled expression. The hooded leader formally thanks the half-ogre for his protection, acknowledging the bond they've formed. A companion chimes in, hoping Leyon's wish to see the world beyond his village comes true. Leyon looks down with a wistful sigh, wondering if he'll ever get the chance to leave. The man suggests a traveling circus as an option, though he doubts even they would accept an ogre. The merchant leader puffs up with pride, offended that Leyon is surprised by his worldly knowledge. Leyon raises a hand in a final quiet gesture of farewell. From the tree line, he watches the group safely enter the city, his duty finally complete. A thoughtful look crosses his face as he stands alone, the sounds of the forest his only company. His expression hardens with a newfound resolve, the brief taste of the outside world clearly leaving its mark. Leyon turns back towards the dense woods, a sudden worry for his village clouding his thoughts. His mind races with a single pressing question about the safety of his home. A shadowy figure with glowing white eyes materializes from the forest's depths. Leyon senses the new presence, his body tensing as he peers into the darkness. The newcomer is revealed to be a scarred, elf-like man with a dangerously cunning smile. Nearby, another monstrous figure with horns crouches, ready to spring from the shadows. A sudden flash of blue light erupts in the forest, signaling a swift and decisive attack. The story flashes back 8 years, showing a much more peaceful Faren village. A much younger, more innocent-looking Leyon looks up, startled by someone calling his name. A man sits with the young half-ogre on a hill, casually asking the boy his age. The man is shocked to learn the young half-ogre is only 5 years old, marveling at his impressive size. He playfully chides the boy for his rapid growth, joking that he must be eating far too much. In a stark contrast, Leyon's mother is shown in a completely different light, expertly butchering meat with a determined look. The man explains that Leonia, Leyon's mother, has begun preparing for something important while he watches over the livestock. He affectionately ruffles the young half-ogre's hair, a simple gesture revealing their close bond. The man looks at the boy with a wistful expression, confessing that Leyon reminds him of his own past. He recalls his own tragic history, a time when he fled into the forest after losing his family and home to corrupt nobles. The memory shifts, sunlight filtering through the canopy as his younger self's story unfolds. As a desperate and frightened boy, he cautiously emerges from his hiding place deep within the woods. From the shadows of the forest, he lays eyes on Faren village for the very first time, a beacon of hope in the wilderness. The man reveals he was only 10 years old when he was forced to flee into the wilderness. He remembers finally collapsing into the arms of a stranger, utterly exhausted and defeated. Back in the flashback's present, he tells young Leyon that Faren is likely the only place that would ever accept them. He gestures towards the village, explaining that everyone there is an outcast in their own way. Their community, he concludes, is built on a foundation of shared pain and survival. The scene shifts to a later time, the sky turning a violent, unnatural red as an ill omen appears. A now older teenage Leyon looks up at the strange sky, breathing heavily with a sense of dread. He stands before the village wall, completely baffled by the unsettling change in the atmosphere. Venturing into the forest, he finds it eerily silent, with no trace of the usual monsters. A sudden chilling thought strikes him, and he whirls around, desperately calling out for his mother. His face contorts with fear as he sprints through the woods, desperate to reach his home. He pictures his home, the lone grave a constant reminder of what he stands to lose. He feels a surge of relief, realizing the strange red haze hasn't reached the cabin. His relief vanishes in an instant, replaced by a chilling new observation. He spots a fire burning below, but the crackling flames feel strangely deliberate. He inhales deeply, his animalistic senses detecting a peculiar aroma within the smoke. His expression shifts to one of dawning horror as he identifies the strange fragrance. The burning logs are mixed with a fragrant incense, a detail that makes his blood run cold. He pieces it together. The fire is a calculated trap, using incense to hide the scent of an approaching threat from the village. He pushes aside his confusion, his mind focused on a single urgent goal, getting back to the village before it's too late. A voice cuts through the chaos and a younger Leon's eyes widen in recognition. He whirls around, his face a mask of shock as he takes in the fiery devastation around him. The forest is ablaze, the ground littered with the grim aftermath of a brutal attack. His worst fears are realized as he finds his old friend Nelson slumped against a tree and gravely injured. The wounded man struggles to speak, his voice barely a whisper as he calls out to the young half-ogre. Nelson's gaze drifts past Leon, his expression grim as he assesses his own fading strength. Leon rushes to his side, his hands hovering over the man, desperate to offer aid. He frantically suggests they return to the village for help, his voice filled with youthful panic. As Leon tries to help him up, Nelson stops him, knowing he has one last crucial warning to deliver. He grips the boy's arm with his remaining strength, urging him to hold on to his sanity no matter what horrors await him back home. With his final warning delivered, Nelson's hand falls limp, his life extinguished in the fire. The young half-ogre can only kneel in the burning clearing, the weight of his friend's death settling upon him. He remains motionless for a moment, the embers swirling around him as the terrible truth sinks in. Leon rises to his feet, his powerful frame trembling with a mixture of grief and dawning fury. A lone crow watches from a charred branch, its cry a grim omen in the smoke-filled air. The half-ogre's face twists in terror as he finally understands the true meaning of his friend's last words. He remembers Nelson's kindness, the memory of a gentler time fueling his current anguish. His grief ignites into a brilliant blue energy, his eye glowing with a terrifying new power. Fueled by a desperate rage, he sprints through the burning woods, a blur of motion heading for home. But back at the village, archers already line the walls, their bows drawn against the unseen threat. The village defenders take aim from the wall, their expressions grim under the blood-red sky. Below, a massive horde of orcs and trolls swarms the base of the settlement, ready for a full-scale assault. The monstrous attackers begin raising siege ladders, determined to breach the village's defenses. A younger village chief roars at his men, ordering them to prepare for the incoming wave. Another defender shouts a strategic command, telling the archers to prioritize the trolls carrying the ladders. With bows drawn, the chief and his men stand ready to unleash a volley of arrows upon the enemy below. One of the defenders questions how simple bandits became a militarized force so quickly, while the chief suspects a hidden hand is at play. A scout using binoculars spots something even more terrifying behind the main horde, frantically trying to warn his leader. The view reveals a disciplined regiment of goblins and orcs, complete with banners, confirming this is no mere raid. At the head of the army sits their true commander, an armored figure riding a monstrous beast with glowing red eyes. The commander's mount is a terrifying warg, its red eyes burning with feral rage. The chief's face hardens as he recognizes the legendary beast, a creature straight out of wartime stories. The commander himself is a scarred, battle-worn figure, his face a mask of cold, calculated cruelty. His single eye flashes with a malevolent red light, a clear sign of his dark power. He sits atop his monstrous steed, a formidable general leading a disciplined army of orcs. From below, the horde stares up at the wooden walls, their sheer numbers a promise of the village's imminent fall. The chief can't believe his eyes, questioning if the massive figure is even an orc and marveling at the tamed warg. His disbelief turns to sheer terror as he identifies the creature as an Uruk from the wastelands, a monster from the Truvanian battlefields. He turns to his men, his voice grim, confirming their worst fears. This is a full-scale invasion, not a simple raid. But before he can rally his troops, a blade cuts him down from behind, revealing a traitor in their midst. The betrayal sends the watchtower into chaos as a defender is brutally struck down from behind. The traitor then reveals a grim trophy, presenting it as a chilling message to the horrified villagers. A blonde-haired man immediately takes command, shouting for the men to treat the wound and warning of poisoned orc blades. Down below, the Uruk commander looks on, the mastermind behind the village's internal collapse. He gives a new command, signaling for his forces to unleash their own monstrous allies upon the wall. A cruel sneer twists his scarred face, his glowing red eye promising nothing but destruction. The full-scale assault begins as the orc horde swarms the walls, raising siege ladders against the wooden defenses. From the watchtowers, the remaining defenders desperately try to coordinate, prioritizing the destruction of the ladders. But the enemy is relentless, with warriors already leaping over the palisade to engage the villagers directly. The new leader rallies the troops, his voice roaring as he calls all defense units to the wall for a last stand. The village archers draw their bows in unison, preparing to unleash a coordinated assault. With a final command, the defenders are ordered to fire upon the swarming horde below. A hail of arrows darkens the blood-red sky, raining down on the unsuspecting attackers. The deadly volley cuts through the air, a blur of wood and steel aimed at the heart of the enemy lines. The Uruk commander watches with mild surprise, noting the villagers are more skilled than he anticipated. On the wall, the new leader takes careful aim with a crossbow, singling out a specific target. His bolt finds its mark, striking the commander's face and drawing a splash of blood. But the true target is revealed as a robed figure behind him collapses, a precise shot ending its life. The blonde leader lowers his weapon with a grimly satisfied look, his strategic gambit a success. The Uruk commander's surprise turns to cold fury, his glowing red eye locking onto the human who outsmarted him. The Uruk commander's fury intensifies, his glowing eye promising a brutal retaliation for the sniper's shot. He raises a single hand, issuing a silent, chilling command to his waiting army. On the wall, the defenders discover a message has been delivered, questioning the strange object that landed among them. One of the men unfolds the parchment, identifying it as a letter sent in the heat of battle. He examines the bloody script, realizing with a jolt that it's not written in any orc language. Below, a chained hand is raised against the red sky, heralding the arrival of unwilling participants. The orc army parades a line of human captives forward, a grim tactic to shatter the villagers' resolve. The blonde leader and his archers pause, their confident stances faltering at the sight below. Just as he prepares to order another volley, a scout frantically points out the identity of the prisoners. The defenders' faces fall as they recognize the captives as the young scouts who had gone missing earlier. The defenders recognize one of the captives, a battered young man named Daryl. The blonde leader frantically orders his men to hold their fire, realizing the enemy's cruel strategy. His face is a mask of cold sweat and disbelief, paralyzed by the impossible choice before him. Below, the Uruk commander watches impassively as his army uses the villagers' own people against them. More faces are recognized in the crowd of prisoners, each one a devastating blow to the defenders' morale. A soldier warns the leader that the enemy is now pushing for the main gate, forcing an immediate decision. The leader remains frozen, gritting his teeth as he struggles with the weight of his command. But another defender suddenly springs into action, unwilling to wait for an order that may never come. A small determined group of villagers charges down from the wall, ready to take matters into their own hands. Their new leader rallies them for a desperate last stand, ordering them to defend the gate at any cost. A defender strains with all his might, trying to hold a makeshift barricade against the gate. Another villager roars in frustration, realizing they're trapped and running out of time to secure their only entrance. A warrior looks on in disbelief, questioning how such a coordinated attack could have gone completely unnoticed. He realizes this is unlike any monster they've ever fought, convinced the enemy has a specific calculated goal. Outside, the orc army reveals its trump card, a massive wolf-headed battering ram glowing with fiery power. The colossal ram swings forward on heavy chains, aimed directly at the village's wooden gate. Inside, the desperate defenders brace for impact, their bodies the last line of defense against the inevitable breach. The gate shudders violently under the immense force, sending the villagers reeling as their strength finally gives out. With the gate shattered, the Uruk commander stands silhouetted in the breach, his army poised to flood into the village. One of the orc soldiers observes the chaos with grim satisfaction, noting the brutal efficiency of true battlefield tactics. The traitor sneers, confirming his promise to aid the Uruk commander's hunt. The full might of the orc army continues its relentless assault, scaling the village walls. Among the horde, the captured villagers are paraded like trophies, their faces etched with despair. The remaining defenders turn to their paralyzed leader, urging him to make a choice before it's too late. The blonde leader, Ken, grits his teeth in agony, trapped by an impossible decision. His conflict deepens as he sees his own son among the captives, looking up at him with pleading eyes. A fellow defender reasons with him, acknowledging his pain but insisting they have no other way to save the village. Ken remains silent, his head bowed under the crushing weight of his responsibility. He finally concedes they must fire, but admits he cannot bring himself to give the order. His second-in-command accepts the grim burden, apologizing before preparing to make the terrible call himself. With no other choice, the second-in-command gives the grim order to fire upon the horde. The Uruk commander watches from below, his human shields perfectly positioned to shatter the defenders' morale. A cruel smile spreads across his scarred face, clearly relishing the impossible choice he's forced upon them. But before the arrows fly, a lone figure erupts from the wall, soaring into the sky with a powerful leap. It's Leyon, his grief transformed into pure rage as he swings a massive, brutal-looking weapon. The Uruk commander looks up, his surprise quickly turning to amusement as his true target finally appears. Leyon crashes into the ground like a meteor, his landing shattering the earth and sending shockwaves through the enemy ranks. The commander smirks, welcoming the young half-ogre to the battlefield he so carefully prepared. Before the orcs can react, a brilliant blue light descends from above, aimed at the heart of their formation. The blast detonates with incredible force, scattering the monstrous soldiers like leaves in a storm. On the wall, the archers are frozen in disbelief, their attack completely forgotten in the face of the impossible. Down below, Leyon carves a path through the chaos, his axe a blur of motion amidst the lingering blue energy. The blonde leader stares down from the wall, recognizing the young half-ogre who just joined the fray. But the Uruk commander and his forces stand their ground, completely unfazed by the sudden turn of events. An orc confirms their true objective, revealing this entire assault was a carefully laid trap for Leyon. The commander's cruel smile widens as he silently challenges the half-ogre, eager to see his next move. Leyon's attention is drawn to one of the captives, the battered scout Daryl, who looks up at him with a flicker of hope. In a flash, the Uruk commander lunges forward, not at Leyon but at the helpless prisoner. Leyon intercepts the devastating blow, shielding the captive with his own body as the battlefield erupts in violence. The rescued scout can only look back in horror, calling out to the half-ogre who took the hit for him. Leyon's eyes widen in horrified recognition, realizing the captive is one of his own villagers. The Uruk commander smirks, completely unfazed by the half-ogre's dramatic entrance. Leyon stands defiantly over the fallen scout, a lone guardian against the monstrous general. His shock quickly boils over into a primal rage, his face contorting with fury. Behind him, the young scout lies motionless in the dirt, a casualty of the commander's cruel game. The two powerhouses face off across the blood-soaked clearing, the air thick with tension. The commander's cold red eye gleams with amusement, clearly enjoying the unfolding tragedy. With a guttural roar, Leyon prepares to charge, his protective stance shifting to pure aggression. The Uruk commander moves first, a blur of speed as he launches a devastating attack. Leyon meets the assault with equal ferocity, his own monstrous power clashing against the warlord's blade. The Uruk commander's cruel smile widens, his glowing red eye promising a world of pain. He unleashes a brutal attack, his shadowy aura mimicking the swing of his massive axe. The devastating blow connects, leaving a stark red trail against the blood-colored sky. The commander mockingly compliments Leyon's fighting style, surprised the half-ogre knows a knight's technique. He presses his advantage, his own movements a blur of pure, unrestrained power. But Leyon's eyes blaze with white-hot fury, his monstrous nature fully awakened by the battle. Their weapons collide in a brutal clash, the sheer force of their blows shaking the battlefield. Leyon retaliates with a wild swing, his grief and rage channeled into a single, devastating strike. The commander stands over another fallen villager, his expression cold and unmoved by the carnage. His blade finds its mark in the dirt, signaling the grim end of another innocent life. Leyon clutches his side, his glowing eyes burning with a mixture of pain and untamed fury. The commander scoffs, revealing Leyon's full-power counterattack was ultimately insufficient to faze him. Leyon's eyes shift to a brilliant blue, a silent sign that the battle is far from over. The warlord taunts him, mocking his inexperience with pain and questioning his rapid recovery. His taunts escalate into a roar, demanding to know what kind of monster an ogre truly is. Fueled by rage, Leyon charges forward again, swinging his axe with renewed ferocity. But the commander easily sidesteps the blow, delivering a brutal kick that sends the half-ogre reeling. The Uruk lets out a cruel laugh, savoring every moment of his dominance on the battlefield. From the shadows, his single red eye gleams with malevolent intent, promising more destruction to come. Leyon retaliates not with his axe, but with a colossal punch aimed to shatter the commander's defenses. The Uruk commander is sent hurtling through the air, completely overpowered by the half-ogre's brutal punch. He lands with surprising agility, acknowledging that Leyon's power is just as formidable as he'd anticipated. His hand tightens around the hilt of a brutal, spiked flail, signaling the real fight is about to begin. The half-ogre pants heavily, the immense effort of the battle clearly taking its toll on him. With a sneer, the commander concedes that Leyon's natural strength and talent are things he could never hope to possess. He then unleashes his own weapon, a vicious spiked chain that whips through the air with deadly speed. The chain finds its mark, wrapping around Leyon's arm and shoulder with a brutal, piercing impact. But the half-ogre's eyes shift to a defiant blue, his expression a mix of surprise and renewed resolve. The commander yanks the chain, unleashing a powerful shockwave that ripples towards his trapped opponent. The attack connects with devastating force, engulfing Leyon in a massive explosion of dust and energy. The half-ogre strains against the spiked chains, his body trembling with the effort to break free. He lets out a silent roar of agony, his eyes rolling back as the pain intensifies. The commander reveals the chains are a trap for trolls, admitting it's not enough to truly stop Leyon. Leyon's glowing eyes narrow with hatred, enduring the torment with simmering rage. The warlord taunts him from a distance, promising the young ogre that his suffering has only just begun. With a cruel smile, the commander gives a sharp hand signal, initiating the next stage of his plan. The camera reveals the captured villagers lying helpless on the ground, caught in the crossfire. The young scout Daryl looks up from the dirt, his face a mask of blood and despair. He stares in awe at the monstrous form of his friend, barely recognizing the enraged beast before him. The Uruk commander approaches the captives, placing a proprietary hand on the scout's shoulder with a sinister grin. The commander taunts the captive, questioning what it's like to be protected by a monster. He looms over the terrified scout, whose desperate pleas for help echo across the battlefield. Leyon's eyes blaze with a brilliant blue light, his fury reaching a boiling point. The Uruk commander's cruel smile widens, clearly satisfied with the psychological blow he's landed. The wounded scout calls out to the chained half-ogre, his voice filled with pained desperation. The warlord continues his torment, mocking the scout for having to watch his protector suffer. He then turns his attention back to Leyon, sneering at the half-ogre's supposedly weak nature. The commander insists that despite his power, Leyon can never escape his inherent humanity. To prove his point, he turns his attention to another helpless captive, ready to strike again. The two warriors lock eyes, one filled with cold amusement and the other with pure, unadulterated rage. Leyon's brilliant blue eye stares back, his resolve hardening against the commander's psychological warfare. The orcs strain against the spiked chains, struggling to contain the half-ogre's immense power. With a surge of raw strength, the chains shatter, much to the commander's visible annoyance. Now free, Leyon lunges forward, his glowing eyes fixed on the warlord as their weapons meet in a furious clash. The commander reveals his true goal, to break Leyon's spirit and leave nothing but a mindless beast behind. But Leyon's hand shoots out, a blur of motion as he prepares to counter the warlord's attack. He catches the commander's weapon mid-swing, halting the deadly assault with his bare hand. Using the warlord's own momentum, Leyon effortlessly swings him through the air like a rag doll. The Uruk commander is sent flying, his expression a mixture of shock and fury at being so easily overpowered. Leyon's grip tightens on the captured weapon, his knuckles white as he claims it for his own. The orc army and their captives can only stare in stunned silence at the sudden turn of events. Now armed with the commander's own spear, Leyon's eyes glow with a terrifying white light as he prepares a new attack. A memory flashes through his mind, his friend's final words echoing as a desperate warning. The image of his dying friend serves as a stark reminder of the danger of losing himself to his rage. The Uruk commander watches with grim admiration, recognizing the signs of a true ogre awakening. He explains that the scent of battle only serves to fuel an ogre's bloodlust. As if on cue, Leyon's eyes flash red, his monstrous instincts threatening to take over completely. But a flicker of his human self fights back, his expression twisting in horror as he questions the commander's motives. The commander simply smirks, asking if Leyon can sense the change in the battlefield's atmosphere. He reveals he's drawing power from the very ground beneath them, saturated with the carnage of the battle. Leyon's glowing blue eyes narrow, a silent confirmation passing between the two warriors. The commander reveals a shocking truth with a bloody grin. He is also a mixed blood just like Leyon. The scene cuts back to the village wall, where the orc horde continues its relentless assault. On the ramparts, the remaining archers hold their positions, their faces grim with determination. The warlord questions the logic of raising such a rare and powerful half-blood in a secluded valley. Leyon struggles to catch his breath, the physical and emotional toll of the fight showing on his monstrous face. Standing amidst the swirling dust of battle, the commander seems completely at home in the chaos. He then poses a chilling question, wondering why a prize like Leyon has remained untouched for so long. The two half-bloods face each other, the air crackling with the tension of their impending final clash. A flashback reveals the commander's infamous past, leading his army as the legendary Uruk of the Wastelands. The commander's story begins in the war-torn lands of Truvania, where human-orc crossbreeds rose to fame as mercenaries. He was one of these hybrids, a warrior who inherited the greatest strengths of both humans and orcs. His kind excelled in all forms of combat, mastering weapons, command, and the art of unconventional warfare. Yet their creation relied on lost shamanic rituals, which meant their numbers were always dangerously low. After the wars ended, these elite soldiers were left penniless, forced to find a new way to survive. To survive, they took on the most dangerous hunts, facing down colossal monsters for coin. His small band of fellow crossbreeds became a hardened unit, navigating the treacherous wastelands together. The younger commander led them with unwavering resolve, his eyes always scanning the horizon for the next threat. A brutal encounter in the wastes cost him an eye, a permanent scar from his violent past. Despite the grievous wound, he stood defiant as a massive beast rose from the earth, ready for the next round. The commander stands his ground, bloodied but defiant, against a colossal, rock-skinned beast. As guardians of their territory, his group unfortunately crossed paths with a far greater power. The massive ogre effortlessly overpowers him, lifting him into the air with a triumphant roar. This was no ordinary monster, but the infamous slaughterer of the central continent, a legendary ogre. The commander and his small band of half-bloods prepare for a desperate, unwinnable fight. They charge forward as one, a tiny force against a living mountain of muscle and rage. The battle raged on a remote mountain peak, a cataclysmic clash of power under the full moon. But in the end, only silence and abandoned weapons remained as a grim testament to their struggle. Of the entire hardened mercenary crew, only a single individual would survive the encounter. The aftermath shows the commander utterly broken, the sole survivor left in a crater of his own defeat. The name Uruk, once representing an entire race of half-bloods, now belonged to the one who survived to the end. He became the last of his kind, a living monument to his fallen comrades in that desolate moonlit crater. Years later, the story shifts to a seemingly peaceful forest, far from the wastelands of his past. But a familiar muzzled beast with glowing red eyes stalks through the tall grass, a sign of the Uruk's return. The commander rides again, now leading a new army and continuing his journey across the vast plains. For years, the sole survivor has been watching a specific remote village, his focus unwavering. He's been observing a particular forest in the kingdom of Arnia, his presence a patient, looming threat. His entire purpose becomes clear, to watch the offspring of the ogre who destroyed his kin and bide his time for revenge. Back in the present battle, the orcs form a tight circle around Leyon, their spears creating a cage of steel. One soldier lunges forward with a dagger, determined to exploit any weakness as the others keep the half-ogre pinned. The orcs swarm the half-ogre, their disciplined formation tightening around him like a vice. Leyon becomes a maelstrom of violence, effortlessly dispatching the soldiers who dare to get close. Their carefully planned anti-monster tactics prove useless against his sheer, unrestrained fury. With a guttural scream, he fully succumbs to his monstrous instincts, his eyes glowing with raw power. The commander watches the massacre with detached interest, his plan proceeding exactly as he intended. Doubt spreads through the ranks as the orcs realize they're just throwing their lives away against an unstoppable force. The commander's attention drifts back to the village wall, his expression unreadable. On the watchtower, the defenders are frozen, murmuring in disbelief at the spectacle below. Ken looks on in utter astonishment, realizing the true nature of the boy they'd kept hidden away. A soldier notes the tactical shift, questioning if they should intervene as the entire enemy army now surrounds their lone champion. From the wall, Ken can only watch in disbelief as Leyon becomes a whirlwind of destruction, carving a path through the horde. The Uruk commander clears a path, swinging his spiked chain in a devastating arc that sends his own soldiers flying. His attack is suddenly halted, his expression shifting to surprise as Leyon catches the deadly chain with his bare arm. The half-ogre stands his ground, axe planted firmly in the dirt, effortlessly holding the commander's weapon in place. A close-up on Leyon's face reveals his eyes glowing with an unholy light, his humanity almost completely gone. Just then, Ken leaps from the village wall, soaring through the air with his sword raised for a decisive strike. In a shocking twist, his blade doesn't target the orcs, but clashes directly with Leyon's weapon. The half-ogre snarls in confusion and rage, unable to comprehend why his own village leader is attacking him. The two are locked in combat, creating a bizarre spectacle as the surrounding orc army simply watches the internal conflict unfold. It's then revealed that Ken is not alone, as the traitor from the wall joins him, turning the fight into a 2-on-1 assault against Leyon. The traitor lands a vicious blow, catching the enraged half-ogre completely by surprise. The traitor's face is covered in the aftermath of his strike, his own eye wide with shock at the result. His shock gives way to a cruel laugh, clearly relishing the chaos he's created. He lets out a feral roar, his monstrous features twisting with a thirst for more conflict. But the Uruk commander cuts his celebration short, swinging his spear in a massive arc that sends the traitor flying. The traitor is launched through the air, completely overpowered by the commander's sudden, decisive strike. His body tumbles helplessly through the smoke and embers, his betrayal swiftly punished. The commander stands over his fallen pawn, his red eyes glowing as he reasserts his dominance. Lying defeated, the traitor reflects that his sacrifice was worth it to witness what he just saw. The Uruk commander pants heavily, the exertion of his powerful attack finally showing as he glares forward. The traitor lies defeated, a grim smile on his face as he utters his final thought. Catching his breath, the Uruk commander senses the climax of his plan is finally at hand. He swings his weapon with renewed vigor, a savage grin twisting his features as he pushes forward. Meanwhile, the traitor's body lies still amidst the embers, his role in the tragedy now complete. The commander roars, declaring that Leyon's suppressed true form is about to fully awaken. At this revelation, the remaining orc soldiers break ranks and flee in absolute terror. The warlord stands alone in the center of the chaos, having cleared the battlefield for the final confrontation. From the wall, the villagers who once protected Leyon can only watch the horrifying spectacle unfold. Ken's face is a mask of grim understanding, realizing the terrible price of their survival. The commander's chilling prediction hangs in the air. Leyon's true nature will terrify everyone he knows. Leyon stands at the epicenter of the chaos, his body crackling with untamed energy as his transformation completes. His face contorts in a silent scream of agony, tears of blood and sorrow streaming from his glowing eyes. He collapses under the weight of his own power, a blur of motion against the fiery backdrop. The commander's final words echo as Leyon lies broken, predicting a future of complete isolation. A guttural roar of pure despair rips from his throat, a sound of a soul being torn apart. From the walls, the villagers can only watch in horror, finally understanding the monster they've unleashed. Now fully transformed, Leyon rises again, a being of pure, destructive force standing amidst the embers. The remaining orcs realize their commander's sacrifice was a final, desperate gambit as they break ranks and flee for their lives. He stands alone in the center of a newly formed crater, the sole figure left in a wasteland of his own making. A grim silence falls over the battlefield, the smoke-stained village walls a testament to the terrible cost of victory. In the aftermath, the villagers tend to their wounded amidst the grim remnants of the orc army. The village walls stand silent against a blood-red sky, a testament to the brutal siege they just endured. While one man screams in terror at the sight of Leyon, Ken can only stare in grim silence. The villagers cautiously approach the fallen half-ogre, finding him unconscious and reverted to his familiar form. Ken learns that Leyon is still alive, struggling to reconcile the boy he knew with the monster he just witnessed. A companion reminds Ken of the impossible feat they saw, how Leyon withstood countless attacks with his bare body. He points out the half-ogre's unnatural recovery rate, questioning the true extent of his monstrous nature. The village leader's expression hardens, the terrifying implications of Leyon's power sinking in. They debate whether he can even recover from the potent neurotoxins used by the orcs, knowing they need answers from him. But a wounded survivor interjects, suggesting they interrogate another captive instead of risking waking the monster. The villagers gather around the fallen Uruk commander, debating whether he's still a threat. The commander taunts them, claiming he's near death and ready to talk since he has nothing left to lose. A defender warns Ken not to fall for the warlord's manipulations, reminding him how cunningly he led the bandits. Ken ignores the warning, instead confronting the commander about the letter, deducing it was meant for Leyon. He points out the flaw in the Uruk's revenge plot. Leyon has never left the forest to make enemies. The village leader turns away, trying to piece together the real reason Leyon was targeted. With a final weak laugh, the commander agrees to reveal everything, satisfied that his revenge is complete. He begins by shattering Ken's confidence, revealing their efforts to hide the Half-Ogre were a complete failure. The commander mocks their ignorance, explaining that while they hid behind their walls, they were completely blind to the outside world. As he speaks, a massive, glowing blue eye opens in the darkness, revealing a hidden observer. The commander reveals the legendary ogre, the slaughterer of the central continent, had begun rampaging once more. He then drops a bombshell. A mythical blue dragon was secretly pulling the ogre's strings. Ken and his men are stunned, unable to comprehend why such a powerful entity would suddenly appear. The warlord challenges Ken's knowledge, suggesting he should understand the strange nature of ogres. He explains that ogres are creatures of pure defiance, fighting to their last breath without fail. Yet the commander recalls a memory of a battered noblewoman being captured by a monstrous hand. He questions why the legendary slaughterer, a being of immense power, would choose to submit to anyone. The Uruk confesses that this baffling mystery was the very beginning of his long, obsessive hunt. Lying defeated, the commander brings his tale to a close, his revenge now seemingly complete. He leaves them with a final haunting thought, that this entire saga was set in motion by a single human woman, revealed to be Leyon's mother. Ken and his companion are left reeling, unable to process the commander's shocking revelation. The Uruk explains he recognized the slaughterer's scent on Leyon's mother, a scent forever imprinted on him from their fateful battle. He reveals his possessive obsession, believing he was the only one with the right to hunt the half-blood. To achieve his goal, he gathered orcs and deliberately unleashed chaos upon the forest surrounding the village. His plan was to create an inescapable maze, isolating Faren from the outside world and any potential rivals. He mocks their false sense of security, admitting their precious barrier only served to keep them ignorant. Ken's face twists in fury as he realizes their defenses were meaningless against an enemy who controlled the very land around them. The commander scoffs at their naivety, questioning how they ever thought they could hide such a powerful being from the world. A flashback to his battle with the slaughterer ogre hints that his quest might have been about more than simple vengeance. With a bloodied grin, he confesses that avenging his fallen comrades may not have been his true motive after all. The commander questions his own motives, wondering if he just wanted to make Leyon a lonely outcast like himself. Back in the present, a pair of eyes slowly blinks open in a dimly lit room. The Uruk's voice echoes, asking Ken if he truly witnessed the horror of Leyon's transformation. A terrifying, upside-down image of Leyon's monstrous form flashes in the village leader's memory. The memory shifts to the beast's crazed eyes, a chilling reminder of his lost humanity. The commander admits that while Leyon's mother taught him control, his true nature can't be suppressed forever. He questions their ability to handle Leyon once he fully embraces his ogre side as a monstrous shadow looms over the boy's sleeping form. A single tear escapes Leyon's closed eye, a sign of the human soul still trapped within the monster. The Uruk points out that even his entire army was no match for Leyon's power, acknowledging the boy saved them. But he leaves Ken with a chilling thought. What will they do if that immense power ever turns against the village itself? The defeated commander suggests their attempt to protect one child was a grave mistake. Ken's companion agrees, his face etched with worry that Leyon's presence now endangers them all. Ken grips his weapon, insisting he won't fail the village after already failing to save one of its own. The man warns that if they can't deal with Leyon, they'll soon have dragon hunters at their gates. But the village chief steps in, reminding Ken that Leyon is just a child caught in a fate he never chose. He gestures to the sleeping half-ogre, questioning Ken's priorities as a village elder. As Ken tries to protest, the chief silences him, worried the boy might overhear their grim debate. Unseen by them, Leyon grimaces in his sleep, a single bead of sweat tracing a path down his face. He lies still, listening to the chaos and wondering if he is the true cause of their suffering. The half-ogre realizes with dawning horror that his own rampage has fractured the very community he fought to protect. His eyes snap open, his mind racing as he questions the monstrous rampage he just unleashed. He flashes back to his terrifying form, wondering with disgust if he now wears the face of his ogre father. The village elders are startled from their debate, turning in surprise as they realize he's awake. As they rush to his side, Leyon can only think about his own horrifying appearance, a truth he can't escape. Later that night, a quiet calm settles over the village under the light of a full moon. A bruised but standing Leyon reassures the chief, insisting he's almost fully recovered from the battle. He explains he was delayed in telling his mother, but the chief dismisses his worry, certain she'll understand. The old man looks at him with unwavering pride, reminding him that no matter what anyone says, he saved their home. Leyon looks down, his glowing eye a silent testament to the weight of the chief's words as he quietly agrees. With a final instruction to take an antidote, the chief sends him on his way, trusting him to return to his mother. Leyon announces his departure, stating his mother is waiting for him. The village chief watches him go, giving a simple, understanding nod. With a final, determined look, the half-ogre turns to leave the village behind. The remaining villagers can only stare after him, their faces a mixture of fear and suspicion. Leyon pauses for a moment, his glowing eye reflecting the heavy silence between them. He then launches himself into the night sky, clearing the village walls in a single, powerful leap. The full moon hangs in the sky, a silent witness to the night's dramatic events. A lone crow with glowing eyes takes flight, its cry cutting through the sudden quiet. Elsewhere, a scarred blonde man stands alone in a moonlit clearing, seemingly waiting. He looks up with a dangerously cunning smile, as if sensing a new player has entered the game. A figure with long, flowing white hair stands at the forest's edge, a silent sentinel in the night. Leyon's scarred hand reaches out, brushing against the moonlit foliage as he finally arrives home. He looks up, his glowing eye and monstrous features softened by a look of weary relief. His gaze falls upon his mother standing near their home, and a wave of concern washes over him. He sprints forward, desperate to warn her of the lingering danger in the darkness. But she turns to face him, her calm expression a stark contrast to his frantic urgency. He skids to a halt just outside the fence, his powerful frame tense with worry. She reassures him that their home was untouched by the chaos, her focus shifting to a more pressing matter. Leyon's head hangs low, the weight of the night's events finally catching up to him. His mother's attention is fixed solely on him, questioning why he would charge into such a dangerous battle alone. He looks up, his glowing eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow and defiance as she reminds him of her warnings. She questions if his heart wavered upon hearing of Nelson's death at the barrier. His blood-stained hand clenches, a silent testament to the violence of the night. A flashback reveals a gentler time, with Nelson offering comfort to a much younger Leyon. The memory brings a fresh wave of anguish, his face contorting as he relives the loss. He remembers Nelson's praise, a painful reminder of the man who saw him as a son. In the present, he faces his mother near the graves, the silence between them heavy with unspoken grief. He raises a hand in a gesture of surrender, finally apologizing for the worry he caused. His head hangs low as he admits the sight of his friend's final moments pushed him over the edge. He looks to his mother for understanding, trying to convey just how much Nelson meant to him. He explains that even in his final moments, Nelson's only concern was warning him to control his rage. His mother's expression darkens as he questions what terrible truth his friend was trying to protect him from. A memory surfaces of a colossal, horned beast standing in a downpour, his ogre father. The flashback reveals the terrifying profile of the slaughterer, a being of pure, monstrous power. Leyon looks at his mother with desperate, glowing eyes, asking if this monstrous nature is his inheritance. Her hand trembles as she cuts him off, her voice choked with a pained apology. Overwhelmed with grief, she covers her face, unable to bear the weight of his questions any longer. Leyon's concern grows as he watches his mother's composure completely shatter. He lunges forward to catch her as she stumbles, her body racked with sorrow. The half-ogre holds his mother in a tight embrace, offering what little comfort he can in the moonlit clearing. His mother's apology hangs in the air as the story shifts to a different part of the world. The scene cuts to the fortified territory of Baron Bills in the Siren kingdom. Inside a lavish hall, a man questions a recent breach in the legendary dragon hunt. At a candlelit table, an old noble scoffs at the foolishness of abandoning long-held traditions. He complains to a knight that his people don't understand profit or the influence of a figure named Helplane. The Baron reveals his true motive, admitting he sees no value in searching for the blue dragon. The knight, however, reminds him that a sacred mobilization order cannot be ignored. The Baron addresses the profit-minded knight, Herman, who stoically accepts the title. Herman explains their current compliance is just a tactic to buy them more time. He then confirms the Baron's suspicions, revealing the recent hunt yielded some very unusual results. Herman reveals their investigation uncovered a rare human-ogre crossbreed, confirming the Baron's hunch. The Baron's eyes gleam with greed, seeing this discovery as a highly profitable venture. After a tense pause in the trophy-lined hall, Herman assures the noble that this hunt will not disappoint. The Baron leans forward with a predatory grin, eager to claim his prize. A brief interlude suggests their plans will soon be set in motion. But as Herman walks away, his cold expression reveals a hidden agenda to betray the Baron. Elsewhere, a red-haired mercenary sits alone in a city square, lost in thought. A hooded knight approaches, recognizing the mercenary as a man named Tilock from Leiden. Tilock quickly gets to his feet, stopping the knight with a wary and confrontational gesture. He challenges the knight, making it clear that he and his fellow mercenaries won't be underestimated. The hooded knight scoffs at the incompetence of the scholars involved in the mission. He calmly informs the mercenary that he's being tailed by 3 individuals, questioning their purpose. Tilock confronts him, pointing out that this complication violates their agreement for a swift covert operation. The 2 men lock eyes in a tense standoff, the mercenary clearly unimpressed by the knight's authority. The knight pauses, considering the mercenary's valid complaint amidst the bustling market. He dismisses the concern with a veiled threat, warning the mercenary to remember his place. Tilock smirks, questioning if the knight's forces are enough to handle an ogre in its natural forest habitat. Unseen by them, a silent observer watches their tense exchange from a nearby rooftop. The knight's true motivation is revealed as he focuses on the potential profit of the hunt. The scene then shifts to a sun-drenched forest, the destined battleground for their dangerous quarry. Leyon walks deeper into the forest, his single horn a stark silhouette against the sunlit leaves. He pauses, a look of weary acceptance on his face as he embraces his new reality. The scene shifts to a sprawling fortified city, a stark contrast to the wilderness Leyon now calls home. Back in the woods, Leyon's expression hardens with resolve, pushing aside his inner turmoil. He decides to focus on survival, prioritizing the need to hunt for food before nightfall. A primal instinct takes over as he scans his surroundings, his senses on high alert. Realizing he can't go back to the village yet, he launches himself deeper into the untamed forest. The dense canopy of the forest closes in, swallowing him into a world far from his old life. His hunt begins as a massive wild boar charges through the underbrush, becoming his target. The hunt concludes swiftly, with the powerful beast falling silent on the forest floor. Leyon's glowing eyes lock onto the fleeing boar, his movements a blur of predatory speed. The massive beast's eyes are wide with terror, realizing it's the prey in this deadly game. It leaps desperately through the undergrowth, trying to escape its relentless pursuer. From above, the boar's frantic escape cuts a panicked line through the dense forest. The beast soars through a clearing using every ounce of its strength to gain distance. But Leyon easily keeps pace, launching himself into the air as he reflects on his lack of hunting experience. He recalls his mother's efforts to suppress this side of him, hoping to nurture his humanity. Now he understands her fear as his primal instincts take over the hunt with terrifying ease. He lands with bone-jarring force, his feet digging into the earth as he prepares his attack. In a single brutal motion, he sweeps the beast's legs out from under it, ending the chase decisively. The massive boar is sent flying, completely helpless against the half-ogre's raw power. Its eyes are wide with primal terror, realizing too late that it was the prey all along. A reflection in its eye reveals the terrifying silhouette of its hunter, a monster standing triumphant. Leyon looks to the sky, acknowledging that his father's blood has awakened a dormant, predatory instinct. He's unnerved by how quickly he grasped the brutal methods of a natural-born hunter. His mind analyzes the tactics his body already knew: deceive the prey, drain its strength, then go for the kill. He accepts the grim possibility that in this moment he truly resembles his monstrous father. His thoughts then shift to his mother, a new understanding of her actions dawning on him. He wonders if she was always afraid of seeing his father's terrifying appearance manifest in him. But even with this realization, he feels a piece of the puzzle is still missing, something that just doesn't add up. The scene shifts to Faren Forest, where the red-haired mercenary and the hooded knight are deep in conversation. The mercenary recalls how this forest was once a death trap, swarming with organized trolls and gnolls. His companion questions this, wondering if the creatures were actually trained for combat. The mercenary smirks, sarcastically dismissing the idea of a full-blown war in such a remote location. The hooded knight remains silent, his expression unreadable as he processes the information. Tilock admits he was exaggerating, but insists the truth wasn't far off from his dramatic description. He explains that a nearby village still attracts trading companies, despite the forest's dangers. The mercenary then reveals the recent orc attack was orchestrated by a legendary Uruk from Truvania. The knight is taken aback, recognizing the Uruk as a former commander from the Great Racial Wars. Tilock grins, agreeing it's strange for such an infamous warrior to appear in the middle of nowhere. Tilock smirks, pointing out how this simple monster hunt has become surprisingly complex. The hooded knight remains unimpressed, his expression hidden in the shadows of his cowl. The mercenary promises more surprises ahead, urging his lord to pick up the pace as they near their goal. As they venture deeper, the sunlit canopy gives way to a much darker part of the forest. Suddenly, the scene erupts into violence as the knight's forces clash with the forest's monstrous inhabitants. His men prove their skill, swiftly cornering a goblin survivor for interrogation. The soldier scoffs, revealing the terrified creature has already spilled everything it knows. With the information gathered, the goblin's usefulness comes to a swift and silent end. A grim silence falls over the woods, a testament to the aftermath of their brutal efficiency. A subordinate reports to the knight, admitting he underestimated the situation and that Herman's suspicions were right all along. A soldier reports that Lord Herman is following the mercenary to a location vital to their hunt. His men question the change of plans, as they were supposed to rendezvous elsewhere after the mission. The mercenary points towards the distant village, confirming it's their new destination. Herman coldly speculates that their quarry must have found something more compelling there. The hooded soldiers prepare to advance on the village, their objective now clear. With their orders confirmed, the group moves towards the fortified wooden walls. The scene cuts to a secluded cabin, peaceful under the vast, starry sky. Inside, Leyon's mother sits alone by candlelight, her expression troubled and expectant. Her senses suddenly alert, she peers from behind a corner, her scarred face tense with suspicion. Outside, the dark forest beyond her home's simple fence holds an unseen approaching threat. The dark forest looms just beyond the simple wooden fence, hiding unseen dangers. Leyon presses on, his monstrous form shrouded in shadow as he demands to know the truth about his father. Inside, his mother sits calmly at the table, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing outside. Her expression is one of deep sorrow, her eyes closing as if to shut out a painful memory. Leyon's armored fist clenches in frustration, his patience wearing thin. But her eyes suddenly snap open, her attention drawn to an unexpected sound. She turns towards the door, sensing an intruder just moments before they strike. The door is kicked open with explosive force by the red-haired mercenary, who declares the house empty. Splinters fly as the wooden door shatters inward, breaking the cabin's fragile peace. The mercenary stands shocked in the doorway, finding Leyon's mother sitting calmly at the table, feigning surprise at his rude entrance. The mercenary offers a mock apology, his sharp grin betraying his insincere words. Leyon's mother stares back, her weary expression revealing this isn't their first encounter. She tries to dismiss him, explaining they've cut ties with the outside world and wish to be left alone. He scoffs at her request, launching into a cruel taunt about her past and her choice of partner. Her eyes narrow in shock, his words clearly hitting a deeply hidden truth. The mercenary raises his hand, preparing for a grand theatrical reveal. He then introduces himself with a flourish, addressing her not as a villager, but as the Princess of Arcadia. Her composure shatters, her wide eyes revealing the stunning truth of his accusation. Just then, the hooded knight steps from the shadows, his presence adding weight to the mercenary's claim. The two intruders now stand before the exposed princess, their mission's true purpose finally becoming clear. The knight feigns surprise, mocking the princess for hiding in such a humble home. He insists that wasting her life in this remote cabin is beneath her noble station. The knight, Herman of Siren, then formally invites the long-lost princess to return to their homeland. Her carefully constructed piece shatters, the shock of being discovered written all over her scarred face. She questions how they found her, insisting that too much time has passed for her to go back. With a weary sigh, she argues that if her family truly cared, they would have found her years ago. But Herman reveals that while she was declared dead to the public, her family never stopped searching. He then poses a pointed question, challenging her acceptance of her current isolated life. A spark of defiance lights up her eyes, her expression hardening at his condescending tone. As if on cue, a nearby candle is suddenly extinguished, plunging the tense standoff into shadow. Herman then makes a chilling promise to cleanse her of her dirty blood, a veiled threat aimed directly at her son. Meanwhile, under the same starry sky, a lone watchtower stands as a silent guardian over the village. Deep within the forest, a mysterious figure in a dark cloak and helmet gives a silent command. His squad of assassins emerges from the shadows, a disciplined unit ready to execute their mission. The full moon illuminates the canopy, setting the stage for the deadly hunt that is about to unfold. The hunters discuss their quarry, confirming the target is a half-blood but follows predictable ogre patterns. Their leader dismisses the idea of communication, convinced that an ogre is ultimately just a beast driven by instinct. With their plan set, the two cloaked figures move deeper into the dark, foreboding woods. The leader expresses his relief, admitting he was concerned their target might be too human-like. His subordinate confirms the half-ogre is still young, equivalent to a 13-year-old human, making him a prime specimen. The subordinate points out they were never given a choice in this grim assignment. The leader confidently predicts their target will eventually return to the village walls. He orders them to prepare an ogre hunting formation, wanting results before Lord Herman arrives. Elsewhere, Leyon chews on his kill, his glowing eye fixed on the path ahead as he realizes how late it's getting. He carries the massive boar, noting its foul smell and how his mother secretly dislikes it. A fond memory surfaces of a villager teasing him about his taste for salty food. He considers asking for extra seasoning next time, but his thoughts trail off into a heavy silence. His mind drifts to his mother, recalling how deeply troubled she's seemed lately. He knows she won't tell him what's wrong, convinced he is the source of her recent sorrow. The full moon hangs high in the sky, casting a lonely light over the forest. He carries his kill through the moonlit forest, a rare smile on his face as he hopes to cheer up his mother. His expression suddenly shifts to wide-eyed alarm as his senses scream danger. Out of nowhere, a volley of arrows cuts through the darkness, aimed directly at him. The boar on his shoulder takes the brunt of the assault, becoming a makeshift shield against the surprise attack. His glowing eyes narrow with irritation, clearly annoyed by the brazen interruption. Arrows protrude from his back, but he stands unfazed, scanning the moonlit trees for his hidden assailants. Dropping his kill, he launches himself into the shadows, a blur of retaliatory motion. He soars through the canopy, a streak of blue light closing in on his attacker's position. But he lands in an empty clearing, his glowing eyes scanning the trees in confusion. He raises a hand defensively, questioning where the unseen threat could have come from. He realizes this is more than a simple ambush, noting the complete lack of any scent or presence until the attack. The pieces click into place as he understands the true nature of the situation. With dawning certainty, he concludes that he is not being attacked, he is being hunted. His glowing eyes scan the darkness, trying to pinpoint the location of his unseen pursuers. He whirls around in a blur of motion, demanding to know the identity of his attackers. His gaze sharpens, his senses on high alert as he prepares for the next move. A cloaked assassin drops from the trees, blade flashing as it descends upon the unsuspecting half-ogre. But Leyon reacts with impossible speed, raising his arm to intercept the deadly strike. He effortlessly parries the blow, sending a shockwave of force through the clearing. A predatory grin spreads across his face, clearly relishing the prospect of a real fight. The assassin's blade finds its mark, striking the half-ogre with brutal force. Leyon grits his teeth in agony, a weapon now embedded in his shoulder as he glares up at his attacker. The cloaked figure uses their entire body weight to drive the sword deeper, pinning the half-ogre down. The immediate aftermath of the strike is clear, staining the forest floor a deep crimson. Overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events, Leyon can only stare at his hands and question why this is happening. His glowing eyes are wide with confusion and despair, unable to comprehend the reason for this relentless assault. He reflects on how he's tried to live a quiet, hidden life, only for violence to find him again. Pinned to the ground, he demands to know what reason anyone could have to target him now. The assassin looks down, his expression cold and detached as he mutters a quiet response. With the blade pressed deeper, Leyon's thoughts scream at the sheer unfairness of his fate. The assassin raises his great sword high, preparing to deliver a final decisive strike. But Leyon glares back with defiant, glowing eyes, a strange energy beginning to form around his hand. A close-up on his eye reveals a chilling resolve. He's decided he's done being the victim. The scene flashes to his mother, her face streaked with tears as she recalls a past sorrow. Back in the cabin, She stands her ground against the mercenary and the knight who have cornered her. Her expression hardens, a bead of sweat betraying the intense pressure of the standoff. The mercenary smirks condescendingly, clearly enjoying the power he holds over the former princess. He mocks her intelligence, dismissing her attempts to hide as predictable and foolish. The knight Herman internally criticizes his own allies, revealing his disdain for the political games at play. Leyon's mother silently questions the arrogance of the nobility, disgusted by their cruel theatrics. The mercenary's eyes narrow with contempt, judging her current life as utterly pathetic. A memory flashes of a past encounter where a defeated knight lay helpless before her in a moonlit field. She recalls how their past arrogance was just a mask for their own weakness. He continues his taunts, convinced her current state leaves her with no hope of success. But her expression shifts, hinting that the intruders are the ones who should be worried. Her sudden change in demeanor catches both the mercenary and the knight by surprise. With newfound fire in her eyes, she makes it clear that they are the ones in danger, not her. The knight's cold gaze suggests he's considering the weight of her unexpected threat. A sudden sound from outside snaps his attention away from the confrontation. The entire group's focus is violently pulled towards the forest as a disturbance shatters the night's silence. A monstrous figure erupts from the shadows, his sudden arrival catching the intruders completely off guard. The knight can only stare in disbelief as a massive hand covers his face, questioning how anyone could move so fast. In a blur of motion, Leyon lands behind them, the dust settling to reveal his imposing transformed figure. Unfazed, the knight turns with cold precision, his gaze locking onto the new, unexpected threat. As the knight's hand tightens on his sword, Leyon's glowing eye burns with a promise of retribution. With eyes glowing with power, Herman unleashes a devastatingly fast sword strike aimed directly at the half-ogre. But Leyon catches the massive blade with his bare hands, his monstrous strength halting the attack cold. The knight's eyes narrow, a flicker of surprise and intrigue crossing his face at this unexpected display of power. Impressed by his opponent's agility, Herman channels a new power, his sword crackling with blue energy. He unleashes a massive blast of energy, engulfing the area in a blinding, destructive light. The cabin floor is left splintered and smoking from the sheer force of the knight's attack. Thrown to the ground, the mercenary can only stare in disbelief at the impossible display of power. He realizes with dawning horror that the knight's arrogance was backed by extraordinary hidden skill. From his position, the mercenary questions if Herman had been concealing his true strength this entire time. He never expected to encounter a swordsman of this caliber in such a remote corner of the world, but through the dust, Leyon stands defiantly, shielding his mother from the threat. Herman observes the scene with a detached curiosity, his glowing blade still humming with energy. The half-ogre's imposing figure creates a protective barrier between his mother and the intruders. His glowing eye burns with untamed fury as his mother's voice tries to pull him back from the brink. Stepping forward, she orders her son to calm down and leave, confident she can handle this fight on her own. But Herman ignores her plea, his glowing blade humming with power as he prepares for his next move. Leyon lets out a defiant roar, his monstrous form crackling with energy as he struggles against the knight's overwhelming power. The knight looks down at the half-ogre, questioning how he managed to survive the initial devastating assault. He issues a chilling ultimatum, promising his next attack will be the last one Leyon ever sees. Before that, however, he turns to the mercenary, demanding an explanation for this unexpected turn of events. Herman questions how a supposed beast could have possibly outsmarted his highly trained apprentice knights. He stares down at the half-ogre, unable to comprehend how Leyon managed to get past his men and arrive at the cabin. His mind flashes back to the ambush in Faren forest, recalling the carefully laid trap his men had set. He remembers the reports of the wounded half-ogre, a scene of a successful hunt now proven completely false. The story cuts to the assassin leader, who reflects on his distaste for hunting such a young target, despite its monstrous nature. The assassin leader observes his quarry, noting Leyon's impressive size is nearly that of a true ogre. He coldly informs the pinned half-ogre that struggling against his monstrous nature is utterly futile. Raising his greatsword, the hunter declares that a prey's only reason for existence is to be hunted, but Leyon glares back with untamed fury, his glowing eyes a testament to his refusal to die. A chilling resolve forms in his reptilian eye. He's decided he's done being the prey. The descending blade is suddenly stopped cold, met by an impossible surge of counterforce. The assassin's smug expression twists into pure shock, unable to comprehend the sudden turn of events. In a blur of motion, Leyon not only escapes but launches a devastating counterattack. The hunter cries out, completely blindsided by the half-ogre's explosive reversal. Leyon's hand closes around the assassin's face, a clear and brutal demonstration of who is now in control. The hunter's smug confidence shatters as Leyon's grip tightens, completely turning the tables. With a sickening crunch, the assassin's helmet cracks under the sheer force of the half-ogre's retaliation. The leader is sent flying as his subordinate cries out, the hunter's coordinated attack falling into chaos. Leyon stands his ground, having perfectly anticipated their movements and leaving the remaining assassins stunned. The defeated leader questions how a mere specimen could possess such impossible strength and skill. He realizes with dawning horror that Leyon is not just rampaging, but fighting with terrifying clarity. Another assassin questions if their drugs failed, urging his comrades to strike before their target fully awakens. But Leyon is already a blur of motion, unleashing a devastating spin attack on his pursuers. His glowing eye becomes a streak of blue light, a sign of the focused fury he's about to unleash. The final masked hunter stands ready, bracing himself for the half-ogre's unstoppable charge. The half-ogre's counterattack is a devastating blur, cutting through the forest with impossible speed. The assassin leader realizes with shock that their goal was to turn Leyon into a mindless beast for their hunt. From the shadows, Leyon reveals he knows the arrows were laced with a poison meant to trigger his instincts. The remaining hunters brace themselves as he confirms their plan was to turn him into a savage animal. A tense silence falls over the clearing as the assassins realize they've completely lost track of their target. One of the hunters notes with unease that even the forest's echo has vanished, a testament to Leyon's stealth. A single glowing blue eye emerges from the darkness, its gaze promising a swift and brutal reckoning. The bloodied assassin turns, confronted by Leyon's silent question of what he ever did to deserve this. He challenges their motives, questioning if he should simply accept death for the crime of being born. The assassin's eyes widen as Leyon poses a chilling question. Did all the beasts they've hunted before die so obediently? Leyon looms over the hunter, his glowing eyes promising that he will not be an obedient victim. The assassin scoffs, but is immediately caught off guard as Leyon becomes a blur of retaliatory motion. The entire squad is sent flying, their coordinated attack completely shattered by the half-ogre's impossible speed. The hunter realizes with horror that Leyon is weaponizing the very hallucinogen they used, turning their own trap against them. A close-up on Leyon's eye reveals a cold, calculating intelligence that spells doom for the assassins. A blast of blue energy erupts through the trees as the hunter understands they are no longer the predators in this forest. One of the assassins finds himself isolated in a strange mist, stalked by an unseen presence. He stumbles through the blue haze, completely disoriented and vulnerable to attack. The leader catches his subordinate, who confirms he was defeated without Leyon ever laying a hand on him. The leader realizes their situation is dire, as the smoke they used to hide their scent has now vanished, leaving them exposed. The assassin leader realizes with dread that Leyon is heading straight for Lord Herman. His expression hardens with resolve, knowing he absolutely cannot let that meeting happen. As Leyon streaks through the forest, the hunter considers the disaster of such a creature reaching his lord. The thought hangs in the air as the half-ogre closes the distance with impossible speed. Meanwhile, Leyon races towards the cabin, questioning whether he is a beast or a human. Back in the cabin, his mother's expression suggests that distinction may no longer matter. Herman stands ready, his glowing blade humming with power as he awaits the inevitable confrontation. Leyon's monstrous face fills the frame as he wonders what form he must take just to survive. His mother's eyes widen in sheer terror, a silent witness to the unfolding tragedy. Herman stands over the fallen half-ogre, deciding to interrogate his own men to understand this failure. Herman coldly explains his attack was merely an experiment to understand a beast's perspective. He then delivers a cruel ultimatum, ordering Leyon to perish in front of his mother. The knight unleashes a devastating swing, believing this will finally break the princess's will. But Leyon stands his ground, bracing himself against the overwhelming wave of blue energy. From behind her son, the princess reaches out, her expression one of absolute refusal. Leyon grits his teeth, his profile a mask of pure defiance as he vows to stop the knight. Unimpressed, Herman stands ready, his powerful aura swirling around him in the aftermath. The knight's expression hardens, clearly insulted by the half-ogre's continued resistance. Thrown aside, the mercenary and the princess can only watch, commenting on the vicious nature of aura users. The mercenary, however, seems to be enjoying the chaos, a cunning smirk playing on his lips. As the fight rages, the princess launches herself into the moonlit forest, making her own move. A glowing pendant around her neck pulses with energy as she reveals this was all part of her plan. She lands gracefully amidst swirling magic, confirming that events are unfolding exactly as she intended. Herman stands his ground, his powerful aura flaring in response to her unexpected confidence. The knight falls silent, his cold eyes analyzing this sudden shift in the battle's dynamic. His gauntleted hand tightens on his sword hilt, preparing to unleash a new level of power. To the mercenary's shock, the knight's sword begins to morph and extend into a completely different weapon. He swings the newly formed polearm, its glowing tip crackling with immense energy. Now wielding a massive, glowing trident, Herman's eyes blaze with white light, ready for a serious fight. The knight lunges forward, aiming to end the confrontation with a single, decisive strike from his new weapon. Herman unleashes a torrent of pure energy, a blinding blue light tearing through the night. The attack slams into the ground, erupting in a massive, destructive explosion. A brilliant streak of light cuts across the sky, illuminating the entire forest with its power. Deeper in the woods, the assassins are jolted from their mission, stunned by the sudden display of force. One of the hunters immediately recognizes the signature energy of his commander, Lord Herman. He realizes with dread that the Half-Ogre must have pushed their lord to his absolute limit. A flashback reveals Herman's pragmatic nature, favoring a long spear for its profitability over a knight's traditional sword. The narration explains that such polearms were often looked down upon as weapons for common soldiers. But Herman saw its potential, modifying the weapon to channel his aura for maximum hunting efficiency. The assassin leader's face hardens, knowing that for Herman to draw this weapon, the hunt has just become deadly serious. An assassin confirms Lord Herman's location from the blast, urging his men to move out immediately. His subordinate warns against rushing, pointing out the danger of attracting unwanted attention from forest creatures. The leader grits his teeth, furious that their complacency allowed the half-ogre to escape their grasp. Another hunter reminds him that facing Herman's anger is now a far greater threat than any monster. Deciding they have no other choice, the leader signals for them to advance without hesitation. The squad launches into a desperate, high-speed chase through the darkened woods. They press on, a blur of motion as they race to intercept their runaway target. Suddenly, one of the hunters loses his balance, tumbling uncontrollably through the air. He wonders if the hallucinogen they used on Leyon is now somehow affecting him instead. His senses fail as he admits to feeling dizzy and disoriented, a victim of his own trap. The assassin watches in horror as Leyon moves on pure instinct, his body knowing exactly what to do. He realizes this predatory nature is the true, terrifying inheritance from Leyon's ogre father. Leyon's mind races, now applying the brutal principles of the hunt against his own pursuers. He understands that cornered prey will always turn on its hunter out of sheer desperation, and he's using their own human predictability against them with terrifying precision. The scene flashes back to the cabin, where Herman's devastating energy blast connects with its target. Leyon roars in defiance, caught in the overwhelming torrent of the knight's power. The sheer force of the attack slams into him, a direct and brutal hit. He is sent hurtling through the night sky, a victim of the knight's incredible strength. Meanwhile, the village walls stand silent, the ground littered with arrows from a previous unseen conflict. A plume of smoke cuts through the starry sky, marking the site of the explosive battle. From a village watchtower, the chief and his men spot the disturbance, his thoughts immediately turning to Leyon's mother. One of the guards notes the smoke is no campfire, questioning the sudden chaos after a period of tense silence. A younger man reminds the chief of Ken's warning to stay uninvolved with any trouble surrounding Leyon's family. He argues against inaction, questioning if they can really stand by while the mother and son are in mortal danger. Another villager counters that if the threat is too great for even Leyon, their intervention would be utterly futile. The distant smoke serves as a grim beacon, a testament to the power unleashed deep within the forest. The chief wrestles with his duty, wondering if prioritizing the village means abandoning two of its own. Ken's companion arrives with a chilling warning. The fate of Leyon's mother could determine the very survival of their village. Done with the debate, the chief takes command, ordering his men to arm themselves as he prepares to head out personally. A young villager nervously agrees to follow, praying for safety as they prepare to leave the watchtower. Meanwhile, the assassins race through the underbrush, their destination now the village itself. Streaks of blue light cut through the forest, indicating their desperate, high-speed pursuit. The commotion awakens the forest's other predators as a pack of glowing-eyed wolves emerges from the shadows. The hunters leap through the canopy, pushing themselves to their absolute limit. They finally arrive at the cabin clearing, finding Lord Herman already waiting for them. He stands alone amidst the swirling mist, a silent and intimidating presence. His subordinates approach cautiously, the failure of their mission hanging heavy in the air. The entire squad kneels before their commander, awaiting judgment for their incompetence. Herman looks on grimly, admitting that they are already far behind in this deadly game. The assassin leader takes full responsibility, reporting their failure to a silent Herman. Herman's cold gaze cuts through the night as he questions if this failure is meant to be a personal humiliation. The leader desperately warns his lord that their target requires extreme caution. He explains that Leyon isn't just a beast, he's a dangerous hybrid of ogre instinct and human reasoning. The assassin adds that Leyon's bond with his mother proves a level of control that makes him unpredictable. He tries to deflect blame, stating his squad merely acts as the hands and feet for Herman's grander plans. Herman accepts this explanation with a single, chilling word of approval. With his blade glowing, he offers a grim choice, telling them to present their swordless hand if they wish to be spared. The knight's focus shifts, already calculating his next move and the problems that lie ahead. Just then, the village chief and his men arrive on the scene, walking into the middle of the tense standoff. Herman looks down, momentarily confused by the unexpected arrival of the villagers. One of the assassins raises his hands, equally surprised by the sudden interruption. The knight's confusion quickly turns into a predatory smile, seeing the villagers as fresh bait for his plans. A young villager steps forward to challenge the intruders, but the chief quickly silences him. The village chief's face is a mask of grim determination as he sizes up the dangerous situation. The story then cuts to a candlelit room, where a local leader is dealing with growing unrest. He dismisses any thought of rebellion, while his subordinate argues that the Lord's crushing taxes will lead to their ruin. The scene pans over a quiet village street, hinting at the simmering tension beneath the surface. The subordinate presses his point, reminding the leader of the brutal fate that befell a local family. A chilling flashback reveals the Lord's cruel justice, a grim warning displayed for all to see in the town square. The subordinate recalls the final straw, the Lord's cruel demands that pushed them to choose death over submission. He remembers the day he and his fellow villagers stood united in the town square, their defiance casting long shadows. The Lord had accused him of inciting rebellion, twisting his actions into a personal betrayal to justify his wrath. In the present, his father warns him that his festering resentment has become a dangerous poison. The son turns back with a heavy heart, offering a solemn apology for the path he has chosen. The memory shifts to the moment the uprising against Lord Siren officially began. He led the charge with a tattered banner, but the ensuing battle was far more brutal than they had anticipated. The Lord, who had remained silent throughout the growing unrest, finally revealed his hand. As the rebels stormed the gates, they were met by 3 imposing, fully armored figures. One of the elite knights raises a glowing sword, its light exposing the rebels' terrified faces to the overwhelming power they now faced. The knight unleashes a devastating arc of pure energy, a single swing meant to end the rebellion. The rebels can only stare in horror, their simple weapons useless against such overwhelming power. Bathed in the blinding light, the villagers' desperate charge comes to a dead stop. Their leader grits his teeth, his face a mask of defiance against an impossible foe. In a single brutal moment, the knight's attack scatters the rebels like leaves in a storm. The leader's face twists in a silent scream, a testament to the Lord's cruel and dignified response. A somber quiet falls over the territory, the sky itself seeming to mourn the failed uprising. The memory recalls the day the people stood united, their first and last large-scale act of defiance. But their hope ended on a gallows, a public spectacle designed to crush any lingering spirit of rebellion. The leader's final defiant gaze serves as a grim warning of the price of challenging the Lord's authority. The chief recalls being forced to watch in secret as his son's fate was made into a grim public spectacle. All the while, the Lord responsible showed complete indifference, cruelly leaving the chief's position untouched. This memory explains why, upon receiving a certain report, he fled deep into the forest without a second thought. With grim determination, he remembers the night he finally escaped the cruel territory of Siren. He can never forget the 3 elite knights who served as the Lord's unstoppable enforcers. The memory of their glowing blades is a terror that has been seared into his mind ever since. He remembers how one knight, new to his rank, single-handedly defeated their entire militia without a scratch. Back in the present, the chief realizes he is now face-to-face with that very same knight in the dark woods. Herman's cruel smile and humming blade confirm he is the same monster from the chief's past. The haunting image of his son's final moments flashes through his mind, a grim reminder of the man he's facing. The chief's face contorts with fury as a villager cries out his name in alarm. The young villager tries to warn him, but it's too late. Herman's forces have already surrounded them. He recalls a chilling warning about this very knight, who now stands before them like a silent executioner. Without warning, the assassins strike, and one of the villagers is swiftly taken out of the fight. The chief watches in horror as another of his men is caught in the brutal, lightning-fast assault. The cloaked figures move like shadows, their attack a blur of motion that leaves the villagers reeling. He cries out in helpless rage as his men are systematically overwhelmed by the elite squad. In an instant, the chief finds himself cornered, with blades held menacingly to his throat. Herman calmly explains this is not an act of anger, but a lesson in proper etiquette for interrupting a knight. Despite the blades at his neck, the chief glares defiantly as Herman offers him a twisted sort of opportunity. Herman delivers a chilling ultimatum, implying that further resistance will only lead to more death. Before the chief can answer, a blinding flash of blue energy erupts from the side. The blast connects with a shocking target, Leyon, who has returned to face the knight head-on. He is sent soaring through the night sky, completely overwhelmed by the knight's devastating power. The ground itself is torn asunder, a testament to the sheer force of Herman's attack. Leyon lies motionless in the dirt, the fight seemingly knocked out of him in a single blow. From above, his defeated form is a stark silhouette against the scarred earth. His thoughts drift to the injustice of his birth, questioning if his very existence is a crime. Through the pain, he wonders if he should simply accept his fate and die without a fight. But a reflection of the moon in his glowing eye reveals a flicker of defiance. He's not done yet. His hand reaches for the moon, a final desperate grasp for something beyond his pain. He roars in defiance, questioning what monstrous form he must embrace simply to survive. A vision flashes of a terrifying wolf-like beast, another predator lurking in these woods. The beast stands with its orcish companion, surveying their territory under the same moonlit sky. Leyon's face contorts in a primal scream, his humanity slipping away as his ogre blood takes over. He realizes that to live in this world, he might have to become the worst monster of them all. Through the pain, his glowing eye sharpens with a cold, newfound clarity. The scene shifts to an ancient text, revealing that the true nature of ogres remains a dangerous mystery. The forest's other monstrous inhabitants gather, drawn by the chaos of the night's battle. The wolf beast reveals its savage nature, a grim reminder of the brutal laws that govern this forest. The wolf beast licks its jaws clean, a primal act in the moonlit chaos. A memory of the princess explains that while powerful monsters are common, they are predictable. But she reveals that ogres are the exception, lone predators who defy all known patterns. The narration questions how these solitary creatures who act alone can be so dominant. Back in the present, the wolf beast and its orc companion are confronted by a rival pack. The beast's head snaps up, its attention suddenly drawn by a distant disturbance. The memory continues, questioning the very principle that allows a lone ogre to dominate an entire forest. The ogre's glowing eyes burn with an untamed power, the source of his terrifying authority. In the present, Leyon unleashes a primal roar, his body erupting with that same blue ogre energy. The scene cuts to the quiet village, blissfully unaware of the monstrous power awakening just beyond its walls. The narration concludes that an ogre's essence can only be conveyed through expressions of raw, untamed power. A close-up on its glowing eyes reveals a terrifying intensity, a window into its primal soul. This raw power is demonstrated as a monstrous figure soars over the village, a blur of unstoppable force. Back in the clearing, Herman stands calmly amidst the aftermath, his presence radiating cold authority. The village chief kneels in defeat, a silent testament to the swift and brutal efficiency of Herman's men. With the villagers now his captives, Herman's forces stand ready, their commander's plan moving forward. From a distance, the village watchtower stands as a lone beacon of light, unaware of the danger at its doorstep. But a guard on duty spots the confrontation through his spyglass, his silence speaking volumes about the horror he's witnessing. Herman's sharp gaze snaps upward, sensing he's being watched from the village walls. Now aware of their audience, the knight and his squad turn their full attention to the fortified village. Herman's blade hums with an intense blue energy, crackling with raw power. With a cold, focused expression, he swings his sword, gathering the swirling aura for a devastating attack. The guard in the watchtower stares through his spyglass, his eyes wide with disbelief at the knight's display. Herman unleashes a massive wave of energy, not at his captives, but directly at the village walls. A volley of glowing projectiles streaks through the night, a clear and devastating message to the onlookers. The blast slams into the watchtower, a show of force that leaves the guard stunned by its sheer power. His men report that the tower is undamaged, and the captain stops himself from ordering a counterattack. He realizes with grim certainty that the knight could have easily destroyed them, but deliberately missed. The captain understands this was a warning shot, a demand for their surrender, and orders his men to stand down. Below, Herman and his squad wait patiently, the captured village chief a clear signal of their hostile intentions. The village chief kneels in the dirt, a picture of grim acceptance before his captors. Up in the watchtower, the captain of the guard shouts in alarm, realizing the dire situation below. He understands the chief is now a hostage, held by a knight whose reputation is one of cold, brutal efficiency. The captain questions his men, trying to piece together why the chief would venture out to meet such a threat. He learns the chief wasn't alone, a detail that makes his blood run cold as he realizes the full scope of the danger. With newfound urgency, he orders a search party to find the chief's escort, declaring he will personally buy them time. A subordinate protests, warning his captain that facing that knight alone is a death sentence. The captain gives a final, grim order. If he falls, the villagers are to be evacuated through a secret underground passage. He grits his teeth, knowing that to men like Herman, the lives of villagers are utterly meaningless. Gazing at the damaged fortifications, he curses their misfortune, trapped by an enemy they cannot hope to defeat. Herman and his squad stand as an imposing force, their backs to the viewer as they face the village. The guard captain remains silent, his expression hardening as he weighs his impossible options. A memory surfaces of a powerful figure questioning the nature of ambition and the pursuit of profit. The figure's condescending words echo, challenging the idea that success can be achieved by will alone. The memory shifts to a brutal, snowy landscape where a massive, glowing-eyed beast stands ready to attack. A younger, battle-worn Herman is shown struggling against the creature, his past hardships laid bare. He recalls the bitter rejection he faced, dismissed by the nobility as a knight of lowly origins. This was the moment he learned a harsh lesson. Sheer willpower is not always enough to succeed. By accepting this reality, he was able to shift his focus from honor to cold, calculated profit. But back in the present, a bloodied Leyon rejects this philosophy, vowing to defy the knight's will no matter the cost. Herman's cold eyes narrow, silently judging the guard captain's defiant stance. A brilliant flash of blue energy signals the start of the confrontation. The knight remains utterly unfazed, his powerful aura radiating an intimidating calm. Stepping forward, the captain declares he will handle the introductions himself. He challenges the knight's authority, suggesting a noble wouldn't understand their local customs. A cruel smile spreads across Herman's face as he easily sees through the captain's desperate attempt to buy time. With a manic grin, he raises his glowing blade, mocking the futility of such a simple plan. The captain braces himself, meeting the knight's overwhelming power in a blinding clash of energy. The village chief cries out in horror as he watches his captain fall in the swift, brutal exchange. The aftermath is clear, with the wounded captain kneeling in defeat before the victorious knight and his squad. The village chief desperately offers himself up, claiming his people know nothing of the situation. He begs the knight to use him as bait and spare the others, hoping to de-escalate the conflict. But Herman's patience has run out, his expression hardening with cold annoyance. He raises his glowing blade, preparing to make a brutal example out of someone. The wounded captain is caught in the path of the knight's devastating energy wave. The attack shatters around him, the sheer force of the blow undeniable. With a cruel smirk, Herman unleashes his power, aiming to silence the captain for good. The energy erupts in a blinding flash, completely engulfing the defiant villager. The brutal result of the attack is immediately clear, marking a grim turn in the standoff. Despite the devastating hit, the captain remains standing, his eyes glowing with shock and defiance. The captain kneels in the aftermath, a solitary figure of defiance before the imposing village silhouette. But Herman reveals this is just the opening act. his glowing blade signaling the real show is about to begin. A cruel smile plays on his lips, his eyes crackling with the energy of a predator toying with its food. He explains this is all a calculated performance, a grand display designed to properly provoke his true prey. The captain is once again caught in a blinding wave of energy, a helpless pawn in the knight's twisted game. Herman declares his intent to paint the entire forest with the consequences of their defiance. He gives a chilling order to his men, intending to use the villagers to send a bloody message. The captain's face is a mask of pure fury, his will unbroken even as he faces certain doom. The assassins descend upon him in a blur of motion, a coordinated strike to end his resistance for good. But their attack is interrupted by a monstrous, glowing-eyed figure whose sudden arrival shocks everyone. Herman laughs maniacally, his attack scattering the assassins as he revels in the chaos. Leyon's glowing eye burns with cold fury, his silent arrival freezing the scene. The knight mocks the half-ogre's impatience, taunting him for leaving his mother's side. Unfazed, Herman unleashes a massive horizontal slash, his blade a blur of pure energy. Leyon meets the attack head-on, diving through the arc of light to confront the knight directly. The knight's sword crackles with immense power, his gauntlet steady as he prepares for the impact. With a look of intense concentration, Herman pours all his strength into the devastating swing. He becomes a beacon of destructive energy, unleashing a blinding torrent of power. The resulting explosion of blue and white light engulfs the entire area in a swirling vortex. Standing in the aftermath, Herman's expression shifts to one of slight surprise, his glowing blade still humming. Herman stands amidst the swirling energy, analyzing his opponent's movements with a critical eye. But through the dust, Leyon's eye glows with a menacing red light, his focus unbroken. The knight scoffs, mocking the half-ogre's pathetic attempt to defy his will. Leyon's shadowy form lunges forward, a blur of motion that catches Herman's attention. Convinced his opponent has nothing new to offer, Herman prepares to unleash the exact same attack. He swings his blade with focused intensity, creating a massive wave of destructive energy. The blinding arc of light tears through the clearing, a testament to the knight's overwhelming power. Herman looks on with a cold expression, utterly disappointed by the lack of a real challenge. But his smug confidence shatters as he's suddenly struck from the side, his expression twisting in shock. Out of nowhere, a pack of monstrous wolves descends upon him, their glowing eyes promising a brutal fight. The battlefield erupts in a chaotic storm of energy and splintered wood. Amidst the swirling dust, the assassins struggle to regain their bearings in the chaos. One of the hunters grunts in pain, caught completely off guard by the sudden turn of events. He admits his fatal mistake, realizing the thick vapor and dust are now obscuring their vision. But this isn't just dust. It's the very hallucinogen they used, now mixed with the scent of blood to attract predators. The assassins find themselves disoriented, their senses failing them in the thick, drugged haze. One hunter realizes with dawning horror that they've walked right into a perfectly laid hunting trap. The forest's true predators descend upon his comrade, a brutal and swift consequence of their arrogance. Herman's expression twists with fury, his carefully orchestrated plan now spiraling out of his control. From the shadows, the Wolfpack watches its next targets, the sound of snapping bones echoing in the mist. A monstrous wolf lets out a triumphant howl, a grim silhouette against the chaotic night. Its glowing red eyes burn with a predatory hunger, fixed on the unfolding battle. The assassin leader identifies the creature as a scavenger, a beast that thrives on the aftermath of conflict. He grits his teeth, realizing the forest's natural order has now been turned against them. Leyon's imposing figure appears before him, a silent promise of more chaos to come. The assassin unleashes a powerful swing, desperately trying to regain control of the fight. He recognizes Leyon's tactics, questioning if this is just another one of the half-ogre's cruel games. But his focus is broken as a wolf lunges from the side, forcing him into a new, frantic struggle. He's thrown off balance, cursing as he's dragged into a brutal fight with the beast. The hunter raises his blade just in time, meeting the scavenger's snapping jaws in a desperate defense. The assassin cries out as the scavenger beast delivers a brutal takedown. Leyon unleashes his own fury, his glowing eyes fixed on his next target in the swirling chaos. The hunter's eyes widen in shock, realizing he's been completely outmaneuvered. Leyon closes the distance in an instant, delivering a devastating blow that shatters the assassin's defense. He spins with overwhelming force, his body a whirlwind of blue energy and raw power. The impact sends the hunter reeling, a brutal testament to the half-ogre's monstrous strength. Leyon stands over his defeated foe, the Wolfpack now his temporary, terrifying allies. He holds the captured assassin effortlessly, a clear display of his newfound dominance. Even in defeat, the hunter manages a bloodied smirk, questioning the reason for his downfall. Leyon glares down with cold, animalistic fury, his glowing eyes offering no answers, only retribution. The defeated hunter questions why Leyon is prolonging his fate instead of finishing him off. He realizes this is a demonstration, a message Leyon wanted to send amidst the carnage. The assassin scoffs at the idea that Leyon is anything more than just another monster. Leyon's glowing eye offers a cold, silent rebuttal to the hunter's dismissive words. But their standoff is shattered as Herman unleashes a massive, indiscriminate wave of energy. The knight's attack tears through the clearing, striking both Leyon and the captive assassin without hesitation. Leyon's expression shifts to shock, caught completely off guard by his commander's brutal intervention. He looks up to see Herman descending like an executioner, his blade crackling with overwhelming power. The half-ogre is completely engulfed in the blinding torrent of the knight's aura. Herman's glowing eyes burn with cold resolve, his expression revealing he is now taking matters into his own hands. Herman grits his teeth, annoyed that he has to personally intervene in the chaos. Leyon intercepts the knight's blade, his glowing eyes burning with raw fury. The knight's powerful swing connects, leaving a brutal mark on his opponent. The sheer force of the blow sends the half-ogre hurtling into the dirt. Herman stands victorious amidst the swirling dust, a defeated beast at his feet. The half-ogre can only stare up in shock, the knight's overwhelming strength undeniable. Herman looks down on his foe, questioning if a mere monster hybrid could ever understand a true knight. A cruel smile spreads across his face as he promises to deliver a painful lesson. He holds up the defeated wolf as a trophy, vowing to personally demonstrate the difference in their power. The distant forest remains silent, the smoke from their battle rising into the starry night sky. The mercenary lets out a quiet, condescending laugh, observing the scene with amusement. The ruined cabin sits in a quiet, misty aftermath, the air thick with the fallout of the battle. He muses on the half-ogre's fierce devotion, concluding that Leyon only fled because his mother begged him to. Now, with the sun gone, the mercenary turns his full attention to the princess, who sits alone amidst the debris. He notes her trembling hand, convinced that her tough exterior is just a front for her fear. But her gaze remains unbroken, a silent challenge to his condescending assessment. She dismisses his taunt, explaining that a mother's worry for her child is only natural. Getting straight to the point, she suggests they find a way to resolve this conflict. With a smirk, the mercenary listens as she asks what it would take to appease his anger toward her son. He scoffs at her plea, finding it pathetic that a former noble lady has been reduced to begging. He sneers, questioning how a woman of her stature could have fallen so far from grace. She cuts him off, stating there's no time for pleasantries with either the knight or her son on their way back. The mercenary pins the blame on her, suggesting his resentment stems entirely from her monstrous child. With a twisted grin, he demands she show him that famous, unbroken spirit one last time. Her gaze remains steady, a testament to the pride she's held onto despite her humiliating circumstances. But her expression suddenly shifts to one of complete shock, as if seeing something unexpected. He declares his intention to witness her defiance, so he can have the satisfaction of breaking it himself. His hand descends, ready to personally shatter the last of her noble arrogance. His approaching hand is reflected in her eye, but her gaze is one of cold focus, not fear. A brilliant explosion of green energy erupts from her, a sudden and powerful countermeasure. The mercenary is thrown back, caught completely off guard by the sudden burst of green energy. His face twists in shock as the unexpected force slams into him, completely disrupting his attack. A mysterious archer appears in a flash of green light, shielding the princess from harm. The bloodied mercenary can only stare in disbelief at the sudden arrival of this new protector. Before he can react, the archer delivers a swift and decisive counterattack that sends him flying. The mercenary's mind reels, recognizing the legendary name of his new opponent. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, a brilliant blue light erupts through the canopy. The energy crackles and intensifies, signaling the arrival of yet another powerful player. A blonde-haired swordsman with a sinister grin appears, his blade humming with raw power. He unleashes a devastating swing, sending a massive wave of blue energy tearing through the woods. A monstrous figure with glowing eyes intercepts the blast, refusing to back down. His face is a mask of pure fury as he stares down the source of the attack. The blonde swordsman's eyes glow red with irritation, questioning how long they plan to evade him. He unleashes another wave of energy, demanding they stop running and face him directly. But the monstrous figure charges forward, deciding he's done playing defense. He channels his own power into a devastating counterpunch, ready to meet force with force. The two attacks collide in a massive explosion, a vortex of pure energy tearing through the forest. The swordsman braces against the shockwave, his blade absorbing the brunt of the impact. He lands with practiced ease, digging his sword into the ground to halt his momentum. The two warriors stand off, the monstrous figure catching his breath after the powerful exchange. The monstrous figure's glowing eyes narrow as he contemplates the endless cycle of hunter and hunted. He suddenly feels a strange sensation, as if some internal power is slipping from his grasp. The swordsman admits he's never encountered an energy quite like this before. He scoffs at the idea that a mere half-breed could have grown so strong in such a short time. The thought crosses his mind that this creature could actually become the new ruler of the forest. He quickly dismisses the notion with a manic laugh, mocking his opponent's apparent limits. Undeterred by the creature's immense size, the swordsman charges forward for another attack. He launches himself into the air, a blur of motion as he closes the distance with blinding speed. The monstrous figure recoils, caught off guard by the swift and precise strike. With cold focus, the swordsman presses his advantage, continuing his relentless assault. The swordsman's attack is a blur of blue energy, overwhelming his monstrous opponent in a chaotic clash. He smirks with absolute confidence, his glowing blade poised to end the fight for good. The monstrous figure grits his teeth, caught in the blinding arc of the knight's relentless assault. Without a moment's hesitation, the swordsman unleashes another devastating wave of power. The creature's eyes widen in shock as the final blow connects, a brutal and seemingly decisive hit. But the swordsman stumbles, thrown off balance by an unexpected surge of dark resistance. A strange glowing red symbol fills the air, signaling a dramatic and terrifying shift in power. The monstrous figure rises amidst a storm of red energy, his presence now far more menacing than before. In a shocking reversal, the once confident swordsman now lies defeated on the blood-soaked ground. The victorious creature looms over him, questioning if a true knight would ever fall so easily. The defeated swordsman glares up from the ground, questioning what his opponent truly takes him for. He reveals this was all a calculated risk, a trap he willingly walked into on his own terms. The monstrous figure admits that even in this state, a true knight's resilience is on another level. A sudden explosion of blue energy signals the swordsman is far from finished with this fight. The monstrous figure grits his teeth, bracing for the inevitable and powerful counter-assault. The swordsman launches himself from the ground, his glowing blade aimed for a decisive upward strike. He unleashes a devastating spin attack, catching his larger opponent in a vortex of blue light. With a cruel smirk, the knight mocks the creature's audacity for daring to challenge him. But the monstrous figure glares back, unimpressed that the attack failed to land a critical blow. He questions the swordsman's very title, wondering if this is the best a knight can truly do. The swordsman scoffs, his glowing blade crackling as he belittles his opponent's origins. He unleashes a blinding torrent of energy, declaring it's time for a lesson in humility. The monstrous figure is completely engulfed in the overwhelming blast of blue light. The knight's sword hums with power, the source of the devastating attack. Thrown back by the sheer force, the creature is sent hurtling through the smoke-filled air. He grits his teeth in a silent roar, enduring the full, brutal impact of the knight's power. With a blood-splattered, manic grin, the swordsman promises to deliver the lesson personally. He follows up with a swift, piercing strike that finds its mark with brutal precision. The monstrous figure cries out in agony as the blade tears through him, a testament to the knight's skill. Bloodied but undeterred, the knight's expression is one of pure, savage satisfaction. The swordsman's face is a mask of pure, savage delight, completely lost in the thrill of the fight. The monstrous figure retaliates with a desperate, powerful swing, his glowing eyes fixed on his target. He catches the knight mid-strike, his grip a clear challenge to the swordsman's power. The sheer force of the impact sends the creature stumbling back, the ground swirling with residual energy. The clearing is plunged into darkness, the air thick with the chaotic aftermath of their exchange. Elsewhere, another battle's aftermath is revealed, with a monstrous wolf standing amidst a field of crystalline shards. An older man helps his weary companion to his feet, the two of them having survived the encounter. His gaze then falls upon something in the distance, his expression one of utter shock. He sees the monstrous figure holding the defeated swordsman effortlessly, a clear victor in their brutal duel. The victor glares down at his captive, a silent, brutal declaration of his overwhelming power. The defeated swordsman scoffs, insulted that someone he considers inferior could push him to his absolute limit. The monstrous figure stares back with cold, glowing eyes, completely unmoved by the knight's bitter words. He dismisses the threats, confident that he has already surpassed the very definition of a knight and can do so again. The swordsman's gauntlet tightens, his frustration palpable as his taunts fail to find their mark. With dawning suspicion, he questions if his opponent's obsession with the title means he's from the very land he despises. The monstrous figure's expression turns somber, admitting this was a path he never wanted to take. Enraged, the swordsman's hand erupts with power, furious that his hard-won status is being so thoroughly challenged. But the fight ends in a single, brutal moment, leaving the swordsman's weapon abandoned in the dirt. As morning light breaks, a quiet calm settles over the ruined cabin, a stark contrast to the night's chaos. The princess stands amidst the wreckage, her hand on a broken beam as she gazes out at the aftermath. In the quiet dawn, the princess stands alone amidst the total destruction of her home. Her weary gaze sweeps over the devastation, the scars on her face a testament to past struggles. But her exhaustion gives way to a cold, unwavering determination in her eyes. With a turn of her head, she shifts her focus from the past night's ruin to the path ahead. She takes one last look at the shattered cabin, a silent farewell to her former life. The morning sun pierces through the splintered walls, illuminating the sheer violence of the attack. A shadowy, imposing figure begins to stir within the darkest corner of the wreckage. Leyon steps into the light, his glowing eyes the only sign of the monster he was just hours before. She stands her ground as he approaches, her expression a mix of relief and unspoken concern. Her features tighten with worry, clearly disappointed that he ignored her pleas to run and hide. Leyon explains he couldn't run, knowing the knight intended to use the captured villagers as bait. His mother closes her eyes in frustration, pained by his reckless sense of duty. She questions his sacrifice, asking if he was prepared to die for a village that had already rejected him. He defends them, arguing that their moment of fear doesn't erase the kindness they once showed. A memory of his mother's gentle nature flashes in his mind, the source of his own compassion. But she insists that their past actions are not a good enough reason for him to throw his life away. They stand opposed in the wreckage, their fundamental views on survival creating a rift between them. She delivers a harsh dose of reality, warning that his actions have now guaranteed the villagers will want them gone for good. Her cold, pragmatic words strike a nerve, leaving him stunned into silence. A somber memory shows him walking away from the village chief, a visual echo of the rejection she just described. Leyon looks away, the weight of his mother's words sinking in as the sun sets on their argument. His mind flashes back to the village chief helping a wounded man, a stark reminder of the consequences of his actions. The chief's face twists in horror, a look Leyon now understands was directed at him. He grits his teeth, finally accepting the painful truth behind her cold logic. Leyon concedes that perhaps his mother's harsh assessment of the world was right all along. She doesn't look triumphant, only weary, her shoulders slumping with the burden of their reality. He agrees that to protect himself in a world like this, he must adopt her ruthless pragmatism. But her concern shifts, asking if he's okay and what became of the mercenary, Tilock. He explains that the man simply cut his losses and left when the knight failed to return. Seeing his battered state, she puts their argument aside, urging him to rest and recover before they deal with the mess. Leyon agrees to rest, promising to prepare a space for his mother to sleep too. His mother watches him silently as he moves, her expression unreadable. He confesses his true reason for fighting was to stay by her side, begging her to never ask him to run again. His heartfelt plea leaves her stunned, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and sorrow. She closes her eyes, visibly shaken by the raw emotion behind his words. The moon hangs over their ruined home, a silent witness to the heavy conversation within. Later, she gently covers her sleeping son with a blanket, a quiet act of care. Her gaze is filled with a profound sadness as she watches over him. She sits vigil by his side through the night, lost in thought by the flickering candlelight. In his sleep, Leyon's monstrous features are visible, a stark reminder of the power he holds. Her expression is heavy with sorrow, weighed down by the impossible choices she faces. She clutches a glowing green pendant, a silent relic from a life she left behind. With a heavy heart, she turns away from her sleeping son, her mind set on a difficult path. Meanwhile, the villagers have gathered in a clearing, their future uncertain as they stand before a massive bonfire. The chief and his men watch the flames, the heat doing little to warm their grim expressions. His face is a mask of silent contemplation, wrestling with the consequences of the night's chaos. Back at the Perron village hall, the distant fire serves as a stark reminder of the danger lurking outside their walls. Inside, Ken is overwhelmed by the situation, rubbing his weary eyes as he pores over old texts. His face contorts with frustration, the weight of their predicament pressing down on him. Through the window, the glow of the distant fire paints a grim picture against the starry sky. Ken's thoughts drift back to the chaos of the Uruk raid, focusing on Leyon's monstrous form. He recalls not blaming Leyon for his own son's death during that attack, all because of another child's involvement. But the memory forces a difficult question. Could he ever be sure such a tragedy wouldn't repeat itself? The weight of that uncertainty crushes him in the present, his face slick with sweat. He knows better than anyone the danger of attracting a knight's attention, a risk Leyon now represents. Ken sits in stunned silence, unable to find a solution to their impossible problem. His contemplation is shattered by a sudden brilliant explosion of green energy. An armored figure materializes from the light, confirming Ken's worst fears that trouble has found them. Ken is stunned to recognize the man, realizing with a jolt that he's been under surveillance. The visitor explains that after 14 years of close calls, the princess's connection to a knight has finally put her in undeniable danger. Ken worries that the mercenary, Tilock, is a loose end that could expose them all. The visitor calmly assures him that the witness has already been dealt with by a superior. Ken's eyes widen in horror, understanding the grim finality of the visitor's words. He realizes this means the man has already been in contact with the princess. The armored figure's silence is all the confirmation Ken needs. The scene cuts back to the ruined cabin, a lone light flickering in the misty darkness. Inside, Leyon sleeps soundly, completely unaware of the plans being set in motion. His mother, however, is wide awake, her expression resolute as she sits by candlelight. With her glowing pendant resting on the parchment, she begins to write, sealing their fate with a difficult choice. As moonlight streams into their shattered home, she makes her decision while her son sleeps on. Tears of silent sorrow stream down her face, a heartbreaking testament to the sacrifice she has just committed to paper.